Hello and welcome to Potter Paradox. Support us by liking and subscribing. Now let's begin.
What if the Sorting Hat refused to sort Harry and declared him too dangerous for any house? Chapter 1, The Unsorted, Potter, Harry. McGonagall's voice rang out across the Great Hall. The whispers started immediately. Did she say Potter? The Harry Potter? Look at his forehead. Harry stepped forward, his stomach doing somersaults. The sea of black-robed students stared as he approached the three-legged stool. McGonagall held the patched, frayed sorting hat ready. Ron had explained how this worked on the train. The hat would look inside his head and figure out where he belonged. Simple. Just like magic. He sat down. The hat dropped over his eyes, plunging him into darkness. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Harry gripped the edges of the stool. Not Slytherin, he thought desperately, remembering Hagrid's warnings and the pale boy from Madame Malkin's. Not Slytherin, said the small voice. But there's talent here, oh my goodness, yes, and power, so much untapped power. Wait, what is this? The hat went silent. Harry waited, heart thumping. No, whispered the hat, sounding afraid. This cannot be. I will not sort this one. The hat's last words weren't whispered in his ear but shouted to the entire hall. Harry felt the hat leap off his head as though burned. He opened his eyes to find every face in the great hall staring at him in shock. The silence was absolute. Even the ghosts froze. McGonagall recovered first. Sorting Hat, explain yourself. The rip near the hat's brim opened wide. This boy is too dangerous for any house. Not Gryffindor's courage, not Hufflepuff's loyalty, not Ravenclaw's wisdom, not even Slytherin's ambition can safely contain what lies within him. I refuse to sort Harry Potter. Harry sat frozen on the stool. Dangerous? He'd never hurt anyone in his life. Except maybe accidentally with accidental magic, but that wasn't his fault. Dumbledore stood. His twinkling blue eyes had turned serious behind his half-moon spectacles. In nearly 1,000 years, this has never occurred, he said softly, yet his voice carried to every corner of the hall. The Sorting Hat has always found a place for every student. Not this time, Headmaster, the hat replied. I stand firm. Whispers erupted across the hall like wildfire. Potter's too dangerous. What's wrong with him? Dark wizard in the making. Should he even be here? Harry wanted to disappear. The floor refused to swallow him. Dumbledore raised his hands for quiet. We shall discuss this situation after the feast. For now, Mr. Potter, please join the staff table for the remainder of the sorting. Harry stumbled toward the teachers, every step an eternity under hundreds of staring eyes. A chair materialized at the end of the high table. Hagrid gave him an encouraging nod from further down the table, but the other teachers looked at him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright suspicion. The hook-nosed teacher Hagrid had pointed out earlier, Snape, curled his lip in disgust. McGonagall cleared her throat and called the next student, but Harry barely heard. His mind spun with questions. Dangerous? Him. The skinny kid who'd lived in a cupboard. The boy who'd never had friends because Dudley scared them all away. The sorting continued, but nobody paid attention. All eyes kept flicking back to Harry. When Zabini, Blaise, became a Slytherin, Dumbledore stood for his welcoming speech, but even his words about forbidden forests and painful deaths couldn't distract from what had happened. Food appeared on the golden plates. Harry's stomach growled, but he couldn't eat. The teachers spoke in hushed voices around him. Unprecedented. Perhaps a mistake. Cannot ignore the hat's judgment. But what do we do with him? Professor Flitwick, tiny enough that he sat on a stack of books, leaned over to Harry. Don't worry too much, my boy. We'll sort this out, no pun intended. His kind smile didn't quite reach his concerned eyes. After dessert vanished, Dumbledore addressed the school again. Prefects, please lead your houses to your dormitories. Mr. Potter, please remain behind. Harry sat alone as students filed out, many craning their necks for a final look at him. A bushy-haired girl from the Gryffindor table caught his eye and gave him a small, sympathetic smile. The red-headed boy he'd met on the train, Ron, looked torn between following his brothers and staying behind. Once the hall emptied, Dumbledore gestured for Harry to join the teachers gathering at the center of the hall. Well, said Professor McGonagall briskly, we've never faced this particular situation before. Snape's eyes bored into Harry. Perhaps Potter should be sent home. If the Sorting Hat deems him too dangerous, nonsense, Severus, squeaked Professor Flitwick. The boy's name has been down since birth. He belongs at Hogwarts. But does he belong in any particular house? Asked a plump which Harry hadn't been introduced to. Dumbledore stroked his long silver beard. The Sorting Hat has never refused a student. We must respect its judgment while fulfilling our duty to educate young Mr. Potter. He turned to Harry. This presents a unique challenge, but perhaps also a unique opportunity. What does it mean? Harry finally found his voice. I'm not dangerous. I don't understand. The Sorting Hat perceives what lies within, sometimes beyond what we ourselves know, Dumbledore said gently. It does not see only what is, but sometimes what could be. So I might become dangerous? Harry asked, horrified. Or you might possess capabilities that, without proper guidance, could lead to dangerous outcomes, Dumbledore replied carefully. The distinction is important. McGonagall cut in. We need practical solutions. Where will the boy sleep? Attend classes? Who will be responsible for his discipline and welfare? I propose a rotation, said Dumbledore. Mr. Potter will attend classes with different houses throughout the week. As for accommodation, the Eastern Tower has several unused rooms that could be made suitable. The Eastern Tower hasn't been used in decades, protested Snape. And who will supervise Potter there? I'll check in on him, volunteered Hagrid immediately. As will I, added McGonagall, giving Harry a stern but not unkind look. Then it's settled, said Dumbledore. Professor McGonagall, please arrange a schedule for Mr. Potter's class rotations. Hagrid, please show him to the Eastern Tower. We'll have the house elves prepare a room immediately. Harry followed Hagrid from the Great Hall, acutely aware of the teacher's eyes on his back. Don't ya worry, Harry, Hagrid said as they climbed the marble staircase. Dumbledore'll figure this out. Great man, Dumbledore. But why would the hat say that about me? Harry asked. I'm not dangerous, Hagrid. Hagrid looked uncomfortable. Well, ye've got power, Harry. More'n ye know. Survived you know who, didn't ye? That's not something any ordinary wizard could do. But I don't even remember how I did that. Exactly, said Hagrid cryptically. Magic works in mysterious ways. Especially with you, it seems. They climbed staircases that shifted beneath them, walked down corridors lined with whispering portraits, and finally reached a narrow, winding staircase in a dusty corner of the castle. Eastern Tower, Hagrid announced. Bid out the way, but ye'll have peace and quiet. At the top of the stairs, they found a round room with a freshly made four-poster bed, a desk, wardrobe, and a small fireplace already crackling with flames. Harry's trunk sat at the foot of the bed. Through a narrow window, he could see the dark grounds and the distant glimmer of the lake. The house elves work fast, Hagrid said approvingly. Bathrooms through that door. Ye'll get your schedule at breakfast. Come down to the Great Hall at 7. After Hagrid left, Harry sat on the edge of his bed, alone in a tower, in a castle, labeled as dangerous before his magical education had even begun. Breakfast the next morning was a nightmare. Harry entered the Great Hall to find conversations dying and heads turning. He stood awkwardly, realizing he had nowhere to sit. Professor McGonagall swept down from the staff table. "Potter, you may sit at whichever house table you wish for meals. Here is your schedule." She handed him a parchment. "Today you'll attend herbology with Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, then charms with Gryffindor and Slytherin." Harry scanned the tables. The Slytherins glared openly. The Hufflepuffs looked nervous. The Ravenclaws seemed clinically curious. At the Gryffindor table, he spotted Ron, who gave him an uncertain wave. Decision made, he headed for the Gryffindor table. "Can I sit here?" he asked Ron. "Course," Ron said, though he looked around nervously at his housemates. "So, you're dangerous, huh?" Harry's face burned. "I don't know why the hat said that. I'm just, me." "Maybe it's because you defeated you-know-who," suggested a sandy-haired boy nearby. "I'm Dean Thomas, by the way." "Seamus Finnegan," said the boy beside Dean. "My mum would flip if she knew I was sitting with someone too dangerous for Hogwarts." "Leave him alone," said the bushy-haired girl Harry had noticed yesterday. "It's not his fault the hat malfunctioned or whatever happened." She turned to Harry. "I'm Hermione Granger. I've read about you in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts." "Great," Harry muttered, "even the books think I'm special." "So which house do you wish you'd been sorted into?" Ron asked through a mouthful of sausage. "Gryffindor," Harry answered without hesitation. "My parents were here." "Wicked," said Ron. "Same as all my family." The conversation slowly became more normal. Harry's shoulders relaxed slightly as they discussed classes and teachers. Ron's older brothers stopped by. The twins, Fred and George, thought the whole situation was brilliantly funny, while Percy the prefect kept reminding Harry that, technically you're not a Gryffindor, whenever the conversation got too comfortable. The bell rang, signaling time for first classes. Harry checked his schedule again. "Greenhouse 1, he said. With Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw." "We've got history of magic," Ron groaned. "Meet you at Charms after." Harry nodded and headed for the grounds alone, following a stream of yellow and blue-trimmed robes. Herbology was taught by the plump witch from the previous night, Professor Sprout, head of Hufflepuff House. She gave Harry a kind smile when he entered, but the Hufflepuff students shifted nervously when he approached their workbench. "You can work with us," offered a Ravenclaw girl with long black hair. "I'm Padma Patil, and this is Lisa Turpin." "Thanks," Harry said gratefully. "We think it's fascinating, actually," said Lisa, adjusting her glasses. "Nothing like this has happened in Hogwarts, a history." "You're literally making history." "Lucky me," Harry said drily. As they repotted mundane-looking plants with Professor Sprout, Harry noticed something odd. When the professor demonstrated the correct spell to encourage the roots to take hold, he saw something. A shimmer in the air, like heat waves but more colorful, flowing from her wand to the plant. "Did you see that?" he whispered to Padma. "See what?" "The roots moving." "No, the magic. The colors." Padma and Lisa exchanged glances. "Magic doesn't have colors, Potter," Lisa said carefully. "Unless it's specifically designed to, like with sparks or light spells." But Harry saw it again when Professor Sprout helped a Hufflepuff boy named Justin with his plant. A golden-green shimmer flowing from wand to roots. After class, he hurried to Charms, where Ron had saved him a seat at the back of the classroom. "How was plant class?" Ron asked. "Weird," Harry admitted. "I think I saw," he cut off as tiny Professor Flitwick entered the classroom. The diminutive professor took roll call, and when he reached Harry's name, he gave an excited squeak and toppled off his stack of books. The class snickered. Hermione Granger, sitting nearby, shot them a disapproving look. Flitwick taught them the theory behind the levitation charm. When he demonstrated the wand movement, swish and flick, Harry saw it again. A silver-blue stream of something trailing from Flitwick's wand. "Ron," he whispered, "do you see anything coming from Flitwick's wand when he does the spell?" "Just the feather floating, mate. Nothing else? No colors or light or anything?" Ron looked at him oddly. "No colors. Just magic." "But magic isn't visible," Hermione whispered, leaning over. "That's basic magical theory. Unless you're talking about the physical effects of the spell." "Never mind," Harry muttered. But as the class practiced, swish and flick, remember, swish and flick, Harry saw faint traces of the same silver-blue energy emanating from everyone's wands as they tried the spell, though most produced nothing visible to the others. When Hermione successfully levitated her feather, Harry saw her magic brighten to a vibrant blue stream connecting wand to feather. Flitwick noticed him staring instead of practicing. "Mr. Potter? Would you like to try the spell?" Harry picked up his wand. "Wingardium Leviosa," he said, copying the swish and flick motion. His feather shot to the ceiling like a rocket, then burst into flames. The class gasped. Flitwick quickly extinguished the burning feather with his wand. "My goodness!" Flitwick squeaked. "A bit too much enthusiasm in your casting, Mr. Potter. Let's try again, shall we? Perhaps with a bit more control." Harry stared at his wand. He'd felt the magic flowing through it, saw it rush toward the feather in a torrent instead of the gentle stream he'd seen from the others. He tried again, deliberately holding back. Wingardium Leviosa. This time, the feather rose gently to hover at eye level. The stream of magic looked thinner now, more controlled. "Excellent, excellent." Flitwick clapped. "You have the movement perfect, just need to moderate your magical output." After class, Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked together to lunch. "You nearly burned the classroom down," Ron said, sounding impressed. "I didn't mean to," Harry replied. I put too much into it, I think." "Most first years have the opposite problem," Hermione said thoughtfully. "Not enough power behind their spells." "What did you mean about seeing colors from the wands?" Harry hesitated, then decided to trust them. "When people cast spells, I see something. Like energy flowing from their wands. Different colors for different spells." Hermione's eyes widened. "That's extremely unusual, Harry. Magical aura perception is an advanced skill some wizards develop after years of study. If you're seeing it naturally." She trailed off. "What?" Harry prompted. "Is that bad?" "Not bad, just rare," she said slowly. "Maybe that's what the hat meant." "So I'm dangerous because I can see magic?" Harry asked skeptically. Hermione shrugged. "I don't know. But I'm going to the library after lunch to research it." "Of course you are," Ron muttered. Then louder, "Harry, want to explore the grounds before our next class? I heard Hagrid lives in a hut by the Forbidden Forest." Harry nodded eagerly. A visit to Hagrid sounded perfect. They parted ways with Hermione after lunch and headed across the sloping lawns toward Hagrid's cabin. The groundskeeper welcomed them with tea and rock cakes that nearly broke their teeth. "How's your tower room, Harry?" Hagrid asked. "Lonely," Harry admitted. "And everyone's acting like I might explode." "Give them time," Hagrid advised. "They'll get used to ya." "I don't think Snape will," Harry said, describing the potion's master's glares. Hagrid avoided Harry's eyes. "Professor Snape, Harry. And don't worry about him." As they walked back to the castle for afternoon classes, Harry felt eyes on him. Looking up, he spotted a figure watching from a castle window, Professor Quirrell, the stammering defense against the dark arts teacher. Something about the way Quirrell stared made Harry's scar prickle uncomfortably. The next few days established a pattern. Harry attended classes with different houses, sat with whoever would have him at meals, usually Ron and, increasingly, Hermione, and returned to his lonely tower room at night. In every class, he saw the magical energies others couldn't. In Transfiguration, McGonagall's spell to change her desk into a pig emanated complex patterns of red-gold energy. In Defense Against the Dark Arts, Quirrell's demonstrations produced sickly purple streams that made Harry's scar hurt when he looked directly at them. Potions with Snape was the worst. The potions master made his dislike for Harry clear from the first roll call. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new, unaffiliated student." Snape peppered him with impossible questions about ingredients Harry had never heard of, then mocked him for his ignorance. When they brewed a simple boil-curing potion, Harry noticed something even stranger than with wand magic. He could see ingredients reacting before they physically changed, colorful energies swirling and interacting in the cauldrons. He almost warned Neville Longbottom before his cauldron melted, having seen the magical energies destabilizing, but hesitated too long. Snape blamed Harry anyway. "Potter. Why didn't you tell him not to add the quills? Thought he'd make you look good if he got it wrong, did you? That's 5 points from." Snape stopped, realizing Harry had no house to lose points from. His lips curled in a sneer. "Detention, Potter." As they left the dungeon, Harry's shoulders slumped. How can he take points from Gryffindor when Neville makes mistakes but can't when I do something wrong? "Dunno, but everyone says Snape favors Slytherin," said Ron. "Wish McGonagall favored us." "I think it's awful you're getting blamed for everything," Hermione said, falling into step beside them. Harry had been surprised to find she'd appointed herself his unofficial research assistant, spending hours in the library looking up information on magical perception. "Found anything about seeing magic?" Harry asked. She shook her head. "Nothing specific, but I've only scratched the surface. The restricted section probably has more, but we need teacher permission for those books." As the week progressed, Harry realized his magical ability seemed stronger than his classmates'. Spells came easily to him, but controlling them was harder. In charms, he had to deliberately hold back to avoid overcharging his spells. In Transfiguration, his match turned not just into a needle but a silver crochet hook on his first attempt, making Professor McGonagall raise her eyebrows in surprise. Other students noticed too. The whispers followed him everywhere. "Did you see what he did in charms? McGonagall says he's got raw talent, but no control. Maybe the hat was right. What if he accidentally blows something up?" By Friday, Harry was thoroughly sick of being the school oddity. At breakfast, he sat at the Ravenclaw table with Padma, who'd been friendly in herbology. "Posts due soon," said Padma. "Do you get many letters, Harry?" Harry shook his head. "The Dursleys don't exactly write." "Who?" "My Muggle relatives. They hate magic." At that moment, hundreds of owls streamed into the great hall. A handsome tawny owl dropped a letter in front of Harry. Surprised, he tore it open. "Dear Harry, I know first years have Friday afternoons off. Would you like to come for tea around 3? Send an answer back with this owl." Hagrid. Harry borrowed a quill from Padma and scribbled, "Yes, please, see you later," on the back of the note. As the owl flew off, another landed in front of him, a regal-looking bird with a sealed parchment bearing the Hogwarts crest. The note inside was written in elegant purple ink. "Mr. Potter, please come to my office this evening at 8 o'clock. We have matters to discuss regarding your unique situation at Hogwarts. Albus Dumbledore P.S. I enjoy acid pops." Harry stared at the postscript in confusion. "What's that about?" asked Padma, reading over his shoulder. "No idea," Harry admitted. "Why would he tell me what sweets he likes?" "It's probably the password to his office," Padma explained. "The entrance is guarded by a gargoyle." After lunch, Harry met Ron and Hermione in the entrance hall to walk down to Hagrid's together. He showed them Dumbledore's note. "First years hardly ever get called to the headmaster's office," said Hermione, sounding both impressed and concerned. "Do you think it's about the Sorting Hat?" "What else would it be?" Harry replied. Maybe they've figured out what to do with me. At Hagrid's hut, they told him about Harry's appointment with Dumbledore while drinking tea and politely declining rock cakes. "Don't worry," Hagrid assured him. "Dumbledore's just checking in, I reckon. How are your classes going?" They told him about their week, including Snape's apparent hatred of Harry. "Rubbish," said Hagrid, not meeting Harry's eyes. "Why would Snape hate you?" But Harry couldn't shake the feeling Hagrid wasn't being entirely truthful. As they left Hagrid's, Harry spotted Draco Malfoy watching them from near the castle. The Slytherin boy had been giving Harry a wide berth since the sorting, but now he approached with his usual sidekicks, Crabbe and Goyle. "So, Potter," Malfoy drawled, "made friends with the lowest of the low, I see. A Weasley and a mudblood." Ron lunged forward. "Take that back." Harry grabbed Ron's robes. "What's a mudblood?" "It's a foul name for someone with Muggle parents," Ron snarled. "Like Hermione." Hermione's face flushed. "Careful, Weasley," Malfoy smirked. "You don't want to start fights around Potter. Haven't you heard? He's dangerous." Harry felt something stir inside him, anger, but also something else. A strange awareness of the magic humming in his veins, responding to his emotions. For a brief moment, he could see his own magical aura flickering around his hands like green gold flames. Malfoy took an involuntary step back. "What are you doing, Potter?" Harry took a deep breath, and the sensation subsided. "Nothing. Leave us alone, Malfoy." For a moment, the Slytherin looked genuinely unnerved. Then his sneer returned. "Watch yourself, Potter. No house to protect you here." He stalked off, Crabbe and Goyle lumbering after him. "What was that?" Ron asked. "You went all glowy for a second." "I felt it," Harry said quietly. "My magic. It's like it responds to what I'm feeling." Hermione looked both frightened and fascinated. "Emotional magical manifestation is really advanced, Harry. Most wizards need wands to focus their power." "Maybe that's why the hat," Ron started, then stopped. "Sorry." "It's fine," Harry said, though it wasn't. "Let's go back to the castle. I need to find Dumbledore's office before our meeting." At dinner, Harry ate quickly, then headed up to the third floor where Hermione had heard the headmaster's office was located. He found the stone gargoyle guarding the entrance and said, "Acid pops." The gargoyle sprang to life and jumped aside, revealing a spiral staircase that moved upward like an escalator. Harry stepped onto it and rode to a polished oak door with a griffin-shaped knocker. Before he could knock, Dumbledore's voice called from within, "Enter, Harry." The office was a beautiful circular room filled with odd silver instruments that whirred and puffed smoke. Portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses snoozed in their frames. On a shelf behind the desk sat the Sorting Hat. "Good evening, Harry," said Dumbledore, seated behind an enormous desk. "Please, sit down." Harry sat, acutely aware of the hat nearby. "You've completed your first week at Hogwarts," Dumbledore observed, eyes twinkling. "How have you found it?" "Different," Harry said honestly. "Interesting. But hard, being, you know, unhoused." Dumbledore supplied. "Yes, I imagine it presents unique challenges." "Professor, why did the hat say I was dangerous?" Harry blurted out. "I keep seeing magic when other people cast spells." "Is that why?" Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. "You can see magical auras, Harry." Harry nodded. "Different colors for different spells. And in potions, I can see ingredients reacting before they actually change." "Fascinating," murmured Dumbledore. "That is indeed unusual, though not unheard of. Some of the greatest wizards in history possessed similar talents. So that's why the hat wouldn't sort me." Dumbledore glanced at the Sorting Hat. Perhaps the hat itself should answer. To Harry's surprise, the rip near the brim opened. I see all that lies within the minds I sit upon, the hat said. In you, Potter, I saw not just who you are but what you might become. Power sleeps within you, wild, untamed power beyond normal magical constraints. In the wrong house, with the wrong influences, such power could become truly dangerous. I would never hurt anyone, Harry protested. Intentions change, the hat replied simply. I could not, in good conscience, place you where your development might be corrupted or misdirected. Harry looked to Dumbledore. So I'm stuck without a house forever? Not necessarily, said Dumbledore gently. The hat has expressed concerns, not rendered a final judgment. As you grow and develop control over your abilities, perhaps it will reconsider. Harry thought about this. So I need to prove I'm not dangerous. You need to learn control, Dumbledore corrected. Which brings me to my proposal. In addition to your regular classes, I believe you would benefit from private instruction to help manage your unique magical perception and expression. Like extra lessons? Harry asked. Precisely. Professor Flitwick has agreed to work with you on controlling magical output. Professor McGonagall will help with your natural transfiguration talents. And our new defense against the dark arts teacher, Professor Quirrell, has experience with unusual magical manifestations. Harry's scar prickled at the mention of Quirrell. What about Professor Snape? He seems to hate me. Professor Snape, Dumbledore emphasized the title, is an excellent potions master. Your ability to perceive magical interactions among ingredients could make you an exceptional brewer, if you apply yourself. Harry doubted Snape would ever give him a fair chance, but he nodded anyway. When do these extra lessons start? Next week. You'll receive a schedule. Dumbledore leaned forward. Harry, I must impress upon you the importance of these lessons. Untrained magical talent can be volatile, especially in times of emotional stress. Harry remembered the green-gold flames he'd briefly seen around his hands when confronting Malfoy. I understand, sir. Good. Dumbledore smiled warmly. Now, one more matter. Professor McGonagall tells me you've shown some interest in Quidditch. Ron's explained a bit about it, Harry said, surprised by the change in subject. First years aren't typically allowed their own brooms, Dumbledore mused. But your situation is unique. Perhaps some recreational flying would provide a healthy outlet for your energy. I've spoken with Madame Hooch about arranging private flying lessons. Harry brightened. That would be brilliant, sir. As their meeting concluded, Harry had one more question. Professor, is there anything else I should know about why I might be different? Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. We are all shaped by our experiences, Harry. Yours have been extraordinary. In time, you may discover more about your abilities and their origins. He glanced at the scar on Harry's forehead. For now, focus on learning control and finding your place here at Hogwarts, house or no house. Harry nodded, sensing Dumbledore wasn't telling him everything. As he headed back to his tower room, his mind whirled with new information. Extra lessons, flying training, magical perception others didn't have. The hat's warnings about his potential for danger. What did it all mean? When he reached his room, he found a folded piece of parchment that had been slipped under his door. Opening it, he read a message in unfamiliar handwriting. I know why the Sorting Hat fears you. Meet me on the 7th floor, across from the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy teaching Trolls Ballet, tomorrow at midnight if you want answers. Come alone. Harry stared at the unsigned note, heart racing. Someone knew something about him, something important enough to risk breaking curfew. The question was, did he dare find out what it was? Chapter 2, Dangerous Potential. Harry stared at the note for what felt like hours. I know why the Sorting Hat fears you. Who would send this? Friend or trap? He'd already broken enough rules just by existing as Hogwarts' first unsorted student in centuries. Sneaking out at midnight would only add to his reputation as a troublemaker. Screw it, he muttered, stuffing the note under his pillow. Sleep came fitfully. In his dreams, the Sorting Hat chased him through Hogwarts corridors, growing larger with each turn, its rip of a mouth yelling, "Too dangerous! Too dangerous!" Harry woke at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, having decided what to do. He'd go to the meeting, but not alone. "This is a terrible idea," Hermione whispered as they crept up the stairs toward the 7th floor. "We could get expelled." "You didn't have to come," Ron reminded her. "Harry only asked me. And let you two get caught breaking 50 school rules. Someone needs to be the responsible one." Harry led them past sleeping portraits and through moonlit corridors. His newfound magical perception made nighttime navigation easier. He could see faint traces of magical energy in the castle walls, stronger around doorways and stairs. "There," he whispered, pointing to a tapestry depicting a wizard trying to teach trolls ballet. "But I don't see a door or anything. Maybe we're supposed to wait?" Ron suggested, looking nervously over his shoulder. Harry paced in front of the blank wall, thinking. "I need to meet whoever sent the note. I need answers about why I'm dangerous." On his third pass, something extraordinary happened. A door materialized in the wall, a door that definitely hadn't been there seconds before. "Bloody hell," Ron breathed. "The castle created a room," Hermione gasped. "I've read about this in Hogwarts, a history, the room of requirement. It transforms itself based on the seeker's needs." Harry reached for the doorknob, then hesitated. "Stay behind me, but keep your wands ready." The room beyond was cozy, a small study with a crackling fireplace, 2 armchairs, and walls lined with books. Standing by one of the chairs was a witch Harry didn't recognize. She was tall and elegant, with streaks of silver in her black hair despite a relatively youthful face. Her robes were a deep midnight blue adorned with subtle star patterns that actually twinkled in the firelight. "Mr. Potter," she said in a melodious voice. "I invited only you, yet you brought friends. Wise precaution or lack of trust?" "Both," Harry admitted. "Who are you?" "Professor Lyra Blackwood." She bowed slightly. "Your new defense against the dark arts teacher." Ron frowned. "But Professor Quirrell is officially the data instructor." "Yes," Blackwood nodded. "I'm here in a specialized capacity. Specifically, because of you, Mr. Potter." She gestured to the armchairs. Harry sat cautiously while Ron and Hermione remained standing behind him. "I confess I'm not supposed to reveal myself until Monday," Blackwood continued, "but after witnessing your first week, I felt immediate intervention was necessary." "Intervention for what?" Harry demanded. "Your magical manifestation, of course." Blackwood leaned forward. "You've been seeing magical auras, haven't you? Colors and patterns around spells. Energy signatures unique to each caster." Harry tensed. "How do you know that?" "Because I see them too." She waved her wand, creating a small butterfly of pure light. As it fluttered around the room, Harry saw not just the butterfly but the shimmering silver-blue energy constructing it, maintaining its form. "You can see it, can't you?" Blackwood asked. "The underlying magical structure, not just the effect." Harry nodded slowly. "What does it mean?" "It means, Mr. Potter, that you possess an extremely rare magical ability, raw magic perception. Most wizards interact with magic through defined spells, through wands that focus and direct their intent. You, however, can perceive magic in its natural state." "Is that why the hat called me dangerous?" Harry asked. Blackwood smiled thinly. "Partially. But perception is merely the beginning. The truly rare, and yes, potentially dangerous, aspect is what typically follows." "Which is?" Hermione prompted from behind Harry. Blackwood's eyes flicked to her. "The ability to manipulate raw magical energy directly, without the constraints of formal spellcasting." Ron snorted. "Everyone needs spells. That's literally what magic is. No, Mr. Weasley, Blackwood corrected. Spells are frameworks, training wheels, if you will, that help wizards access and direct magic in predictable, controlled ways. But the magic itself exists independently of the words and wand movements. She turned back to Harry. Have you experienced moments where your emotions triggered magical effects without a spell? Perhaps when angry or frightened. Harry thought of the snake enclosure at the zoo, the glass that had vanished. The way Malfoy had backed away when Harry's anger flared. Yes. That's raw magic responding to your will and emotion rather than structured spellcasting. Most magical children experience accidental magic, but it typically fades as they learn proper spellcasting. For those with your ability, however, it evolves rather than diminishes. So I can do magic without spells? Harry asked, both excited and uneasy. Potentially. But untrained, such ability is wildly unpredictable and often destructive. Blackwood leaned back. That's why I'm here. Dumbledore contacted me after the Sorting Hat's pronouncement. I specialize in rare magical manifestations. Is it common, then? Hermione asked. This raw magic ability? 1 or 2 cases per century, Blackwood replied. Historically, those who possessed it became either immensely powerful wizards or caused catastrophic magical disasters. Hence the Sorting Hat's concern. Harry felt cold. Who else has had this ability? Merlin, most famously. Morgana Le Fay. More recently, Gellert Grindelwald showed signs, though his abilities developed differently. Blackwood hesitated. And Tom Riddle. Who's Tom Riddle? Ron asked. Blackwood didn't answer immediately. A powerful wizard who attended Hogwarts decades ago. His abilities took a dark turn. Harry sensed she wasn't telling the whole truth, but before he could press further, Blackwood stood. Beginning Monday, you'll have private sessions with me 3 evenings per week. We'll work on controlling your perception and developing safe techniques to harness your abilities. She glanced at Ron and Hermione. Your friends may join our first session, if you wish. Having a support network is valuable. Why help me? Harry asked suspiciously. Why come all the way to Hogwarts just for this? Blackwood smiled enigmatically. Let's just say I have a professional interest in unique magical manifestations. And when Albus Dumbledore himself requests your expertise. She shrugged. Well, one doesn't refuse. She moved toward the door. Monday evening, 7 o'clock, 3rd floor corridor. The East Wing, not the forbidden West Wing. With a swish of star-speckled robes, she was gone. The 3 first years stared at each other. Mate, Ron said finally, you really are dangerous. Hermione elbowed him. Don't be insensitive. This isn't Harry's fault. No, Ron's right, Harry said quietly. If I can do what she says, magic without proper spells, that could be really dangerous without control. At least now we know why the hat wouldn't sort you, Hermione offered. And you're getting help. As they sneaked back to their respective beds, Harry couldn't shake a lingering doubt. Blackwood had mentioned Tom Riddle developing abilities that took a dark turn. What did that mean? And why did Harry suspect it connected somehow to his own situation? Monday morning brought the official introduction of Professor Blackwood at breakfast. Dumbledore explained she would be co-teaching defense against the dark arts, focusing on practical applications, while Professor Quirrell would handle theoretical foundations. Bloody brilliant, Ron whispered as they watched from the Gryffindor table. Quirrell can barely get through a sentence without stuttering. Harry noticed Quirrell shooting furtive glances at Blackwood. The turbaned professor seemed even more nervous than usual, his magical aura fluctuating with sickly purple pulses whenever Blackwood looked his way. Classes that day passed in a blur of anticipation. Harry's attention kept wandering to thoughts of his coming session with Blackwood. What would she teach him? Could he really learn to control the strange magical perception he experienced? At dinner, Hermione bombarded them with research she'd conducted on raw magic manipulation. It's mentioned in several historical texts, always as something extraordinary and potentially catastrophic, she explained, pushing aside her barely touched shepherd's pie. Magical historians call it primordial casting, accessing magic in its purest form without the mediating structure of spells. Sounds wicked, Ron said through a mouthful of food. It's incredibly dangerous, Hermione insisted. There's a reason wizards develop structured spellcasting. Raw magic responds to emotion and intent, but without precise control. Boom. Ron suggested. Essentially, yes. Harry pushed his food around his plate. Great. I'm a walking magical bomb. At 7 o'clock, they climbed to the third floor's east wing. Blackwood waited outside an ordinary classroom door. Welcome, she greeted them. This will be our training room. The space inside looked nothing like a standard classroom. The floors were padded, the walls lined with strange instruments and cabinets. One corner held what appeared to be a miniature replica of Hogwarts Castle. First, Mr. Potter, a diagnostic assessment. Blackwood produced a crystal sphere from her robes. Hold this and focus on channeling your magic into it, like casting a Lumos spell, but without the incantation or wand movement. Simply will light to appear. Harry took the crystal, surprisingly warm to the touch. He concentrated, imagining light forming inside the sphere. Nothing happened. You're trying to cast a spell in your head, Blackwood observed. Don't. Magic isn't about words or movements. Those are training tools. Feel the energy inside you. Direct it outward through your intent alone. Harry closed his eyes, trying to sense the magic he'd glimpsed in others. At first, nothing. Then, faintly, he felt something, a current of power flowing through him like a subterranean river. He focused on directing a small stream of that power into the crystal. The sphere blazed with sudden, blinding light. Ron and Hermione gasped. Blackwood's eyes widened momentarily before she regained her composed expression. Excellent, she said, taking the now pulsing crystal. And concerning. Your raw output is substantial. Far more than I anticipated for a first attempt. Is that bad? Harry asked. It indicates your connection to magical energy is unusually strong. She placed the crystal on a stand. Now, observe. She cast a series of spells, levitation, illumination, transmutation, asking Harry to describe what he saw. With each spell, he detailed the colors, patterns, and intensity of the magical energies. Remarkable, she murmured. Your perception is already quite refined. Now, Mr. Weasley, Ms. Granger, would you mind casting simple spells for Harry to observe? Ron's Wingardium Leviosa produced a wobbly stream of orange-gold energy. Hermione's perfect casting showed as a precise, bright blue channel. Harry described the differences in detail. Each wizard's magic has a unique signature, Blackwood explained. Like fingerprints. With practice, you'll recognize individuals by their magical pattern alone. Can you teach me to do magic without spells? Harry asked eagerly. Patience, Mr. Potter. First, control. Raw magic without discipline is catastrophic. She produced a feather. Let's start with something basic. Look at this feather, really look at it with your magical perception. Tell me what you see. Harry focused. At first, just an ordinary feather. Then, as he concentrated, he began to see a faint glow, the natural magic within the object itself. It has its own magic, he said, surprised. Like a signature. Faint but there. Everything has magical properties, if you can perceive them, Blackwood nodded. Now, without your wand, focus on that signature. Try to connect your own magic to it, to lift the feather with your will alone. Harry stared at the feather, reaching out with his awareness toward the faint glow he perceived. He imagined his own magic, the green gold energy he'd glimpsed around his hands, extending toward the feather, wrapping around it, lifting. The feather exploded into flames. Bloody hell! Ron yelped, jumping back. Blackwood extinguished the fire with a casual wave of her wand. Too much power, too little finesse. Again. By the end of the session, Harry had progressed from incinerating feathers to making them hover shakily for a few seconds. His head pounded with effort, but the accomplishment thrilled him. Practice visualizing your magic, Blackwood instructed as they prepared to leave. Don't attempt manipulation without supervision yet, just focus on seeing and understanding the flows around you. As they walked back toward Gryffindor Tower, where Harry would drop off Ron and Hermione before heading to his own room, Ron couldn't contain his excitement. You did magic without a wand. Do you know how rare that is? Even really powerful wizards can only manage a few simple spells without wands. It wasn't exactly controlled, Harry pointed out. I burned 3 feathers and that pillow. But you did levitate the last one, Hermione said thoughtfully. I've never read about anyone our age doing wandless magic. Harry shrugged uncomfortably. Professor Blackwood makes it sound more like a hazard than a gift. Speaking of Blackwood, Hermione lowered her voice, doesn't it seem odd that she arrived right after your sorting incident? And knows so much about your specific abilities? Dumbledore probably called her, Ron suggested. Even so, she seemed awfully prepared. And what was that comment about Tom Riddle? I tried looking him up in the library but couldn't find anything significant. Harry nodded slowly. Something feels off. But she is helping me control, whatever this is. Their conversation halted abruptly as they rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with Draco Malfoy and his ever-present shadows, Crabbe and Goyle. Well, Malfoy drawled. The dangerous one and his groupies, out after hours. What's the matter, Potter? No house points to lose, so you think rules don't apply? It's not after hours yet, Malfoy, Hermione pointed out. We have 15 more minutes. Malfoy ignored her. I heard you're getting special lessons now. Remedial magic for the boy who's too unstable for proper teaching. Harry felt a familiar anger rising. Along with it came that strange awareness of his magic responding, thrumming beneath his skin. Back off, Malfoy, Ron warned. Or what, Weasley? Potter will lose control and prove exactly why the hat rejected him. Malfoy smirked. Maybe that's what we need, show everyone what a freak you really are, Potter. Harry's vision tinged with gold. He could feel his magic surging, responding to his anger. Blackwood's warnings echoed in his mind, but controlling the energy felt like holding back a flood with his bare hands. Harry, Hermione whispered urgently, your hands. He looked down. Green gold energy flickered around his fingers like spectral flames. Malfoy's eyes widened. What are you doing, Potter? For the first time, real fear crossed his pointed face. Nothing, Harry managed through clenched teeth, struggling to contain the power building inside him. Just leave us alone. Freak, Malfoy spat, but backed away. Come on, he muttered to Crabbe and Goyle. Let's go before the dangerous boy explodes. As they retreated, Harry focused on his breathing, trying to calm the magic raging inside him. Slowly, the golden glow around his hands faded. That was close, Ron whispered. Too close, Hermione agreed, looking shaken. You need to be careful, Harry. If teachers had seen that. I know. Harry stared at his now normal hands. It responds to my emotions. When I'm angry, it's like it wants to lash out. They continued walking in silence until reaching Gryffindor Tower. Password? The fat lady asked. Caput Draconis, Hermione replied. Before entering, Ron turned to Harry. See you at breakfast. Harry nodded. Save me a seat. Always do, mate. Harry walked alone to the eastern tower, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The encounter with Malfoy troubled him. If he couldn't control his magic during a simple schoolyard taunt, what would happen in a real crisis? As he reached his isolated room, he found a book outside his door with a note attached. For your private study. Use with caution. L.B. The book bore no title, just a simple leather binding. Inside, Harry found handwritten notes and diagrams on magical energy perception and basic exercises for control. He stayed up late reading, practicing the visualization techniques Blackwood had described. As he finally drifted towards sleep, one passage from the book lingered in his mind: the wizard who perceives raw magic stands at a crossroads. One path leads to unprecedented magical mastery. The other, to devastation. The difference lies not in power, but in control. Strange things began happening around Hogwarts over the next few days. It started with small incidents, moving staircases changing direction mid-movement, leaving students stranded, portraits suddenly speaking in languages no one understood, classroom doors refusing to open or close at random intervals. By Wednesday, the disruptions had escalated. The enchanted ceiling in the Great Hall displayed a lightning storm instead of the clear autumn sky outside. Suits of armor abandoned their posts to wander corridors. In Charm's class, everyone's feathers transformed into butterflies that couldn't be changed back. At lunch, Dumbledore addressed the increasingly restless student body. "We are experiencing some unusual magical fluctuations within the castle," he announced calmly. "Nothing to be concerned about. Hogwarts is an ancient magical structure, and occasional hiccups are to be expected. Our staff is addressing the situation." But Harry noticed the teachers didn't seem convinced. McGonagall and Flitwick huddled in concerned conversation. Snape's glare seemed fixed permanently in Harry's direction. Even Hagrid looked worried when Harry visited his hut that afternoon. "Castle's actin' up somethin' fierce," the gamekeeper admitted, pouring tea that changed color with each sip. "Never seen anythin' like it in all my years here." "Does this happen often?" Harry asked. "Magical hiccups? Not like this." Hagrid shook his shaggy head. "Minor things, sure. Hogwarts has got personality. But this is different. Almost like the castle's magic is unsettled somehow." On Thursday morning, the disturbances reached new heights. The Slytherin dormitories reportedly flooded with a substance that looked like water but felt like cotton candy. All the books in the library rearranged themselves by color rather than subject. And most alarmingly, several ghosts temporarily became solid, causing nearly headless Nick to experience the novel sensation of hitting the floor when he tried to float through it. By dinner, rumors circulated wildly. The most persistent, and troubling, pinned responsibility on Harry. "It started right after they announced you'd get special lessons," a Hufflepuff girl whispered as Harry passed their table. "My brother says unstable magic can affect surroundings," another student said loudly enough for Harry to hear. "And Potter's supposedly too dangerous for any house." Harry slid into his usual seat at the Gryffindor table, painfully aware of the whispers. "Ignore them," Hermione said firmly. "They're just looking for someone to blame." "What if it is me, though?" Harry asked quietly. "What if whatever this ability is somehow affecting the castle?" "That's ridiculous," Hermione insisted. "Hogwarts has some of the most powerful magical protections in Britain. One first-year student couldn't disrupt them, no matter how unusual their abilities." But Harry wasn't convinced, especially when he arrived for his Thursday session with Blackwood to find her looking unusually grave. "We need to discuss the disturbances," she said without preamble. "Is it because of me?" Harry asked directly. Blackwood considered him for a moment. "Not directly, no. But possibly as a reaction to you." "I don't understand." "Hogwarts isn't merely a building enchanted with magic, Mr. Potter. It's a magical entity in its own right, alive, in a sense, with its own awareness." She gestured around them. "The castle's magic is responding to your presence, specifically, to the unusual way your magic manifests. So it is my fault, Harry said miserably. No, Blackwood corrected. Think of it as an immune response. When a foreign substance enters a body, even a beneficial one, the system initially reacts defensively. Hogwarts magic is responding to your unfiltered connection to raw magical energy. How do we stop it? By helping the castle's magic recognize you as non-threatening. Blackwood produced a small silver instrument. Today we'll work on harmonizing your magical signature with Hogwarts' fundamental enchantments. The exercise was unlike anything they'd done before. Blackwood had Harry place his hands on the miniature Hogwarts model in the corner of the room while focusing on his magical perception. Feel the castle's magic, she instructed. Not just here, but throughout Hogwarts. The wards, the enchantments, the very stones. Harry closed his eyes, extending his awareness beyond the room. Gradually, he began to sense something, vast, ancient currents of magic flowing through the castle like a circulatory system. Golden threads of power running through walls, floors, ceilings, connecting everything. I can feel it, he whispered. It's alive. Now, very gently, reach out with your own magic. Don't push or pull. Simply make contact, like introducing yourself. Harry extended a tendril of his magic toward the golden currents. At first, the castle's magic seemed to shy away from his touch. He persisted, keeping his energy gentle and non-intrusive. Suddenly, the connection formed, and Harry gasped as his awareness expanded exponentially. He could feel every corridor, every room, every enchantment throughout the entire castle. He sensed students moving through hallways, professors casting spells in classrooms, house elves working in the kitchens far below. And he felt something else, a dark, pulsing presence somewhere in the castle, like an infection in Hogwarts' magical body. There's something wrong, he said, eyes still closed. Something harmful. 3rd floor, West Wing. Mr. Potter, Blackwood's voice came as if from a great distance. That's enough for today. Withdraw your connection. But Harry couldn't tear himself away. The dark presence pulled at his attention. It felt familiar somehow, resonating with something inside himself. Harry. Blackwood's voice sharpened. Pull back now. With tremendous effort, Harry severed the connection. He opened his eyes to find himself on his knees, the miniature Hogwarts model glowing bright gold before fading back to normal. What happened? He asked shakily. Blackwood's face showed a mixture of concern and something else, calculation. You connected too deeply. Merged your magical awareness with the castle's own. Is that bad? Dangerous, she corrected. Such connections should be built gradually. You essentially forced a direct link to Hogwarts' magical core. But I felt something, on the 3rd floor. Something wrong. Blackwood's expression became carefully neutral. The Forbidden Corridor contains materials for advanced magical research. Nothing for first years to concern themselves with. Harry wasn't convinced. The dark pulse he'd felt didn't seem like research materials. It felt malevolent. I think we've done enough for today, Blackwood said, helping him to his feet. You should rest. Magical exhaustion can have serious consequences. As Harry left the session, his head pounded and his legs felt wobbly. But more troubling was the lingering sense of that dark presence in the castle, and the way it had seemed to reach for him specifically. The next day, the castle's magical disruptions abruptly ceased. Staircases behaved normally, portraits spoke proper English again, and the enchanted ceiling accurately reflected the cloudy autumn sky. See? Hermione said triumphantly at breakfast. Whatever was happening fixed itself. Harry nodded noncommittally. He suspected his connection with the castle's magic yesterday had something to do with the restoration of order, but he couldn't shake the memory of that dark presence. What's wrong? Ron asked, noticing Harry's distraction. You look like you've seen a ghost, and not the friendly Hogwarts kind. Nothing, Harry said. Just tired from yesterday's session. Classes passed normally that day, though Harry found himself unusually sensitive to the magical energies around him. He could perceive not just spells being cast but the ambient magic in the castle itself, subtle currents flowing through walls and floors, stronger concentrations around enchanted objects. During potions, Snape seemed particularly vicious, hovering over Harry's cauldron with a sneer. "I notice the castle's disturbances have ceased, Potter," he said silkily. "Coinciding with your special training." "Curious." "I wouldn't know anything about that, sir," Harry replied carefully. "Indeed." Snape's black eyes bored into Harry's. "Yet disruptions begin shortly after your arrival, and end after your private session. One might draw certain conclusions." For a brief, unsettling moment, Harry felt something brush against his mind, like invisible fingers sifting through his thoughts. Then Snape looked away, his expression unreadable. Later, as October progressed, Harry settled into a rhythm. Regular classes by day, private sessions with Blackwood 3 evenings a week, and flying lessons with Madame Hooch on weekends. The flying came naturally to him, so naturally that Madame Hooch declared him a born seeker after his first lesson. His control over his magical abilities improved steadily under Blackwood's tutelage. He learned to perceive magical signatures with greater precision, to distinguish the unique patterns of different wizards' casting. Most importantly, he practiced containing his raw magical response during emotional moments. But two things troubled him. First, Professor Quirrell had begun watching him with an intensity that made his scar burn. Several times, Harry caught the turbaned professor following him through corridors, only to duck away when noticed. Second, Blackwood's lessons grew increasingly focused on magical manipulation rather than control. She taught him to reach out with his raw magic to affect objects without spells, to sense magical vulnerabilities in enchantments, to disrupt the casting of others. "Isn't this exactly what you said was dangerous?" Harry asked during one session, after she'd instructed him to unravel a simple locking charm with his raw magic rather than a counterspell. "Knowledge isn't dangerous, Mr. Potter. Only how it's applied." Blackwood's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Better you learn these techniques properly than discover them accidentally in a moment of crisis." As Halloween approached, Harry found himself drawn repeatedly to the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side, the forbidden one Dumbledore had warned would bring a very painful death. The dark presence he'd sensed during his connection with the castle seemed to call to him, though he resisted investigating. Ron and Hermione noticed his preoccupation. "You've been acting weird," Ron said bluntly one evening in the library. "All jumpy and distracted. And you keep staring at that corridor whenever we pass it," Hermione added. "What's going on, Harry?" Harry hesitated, then told them about sensing the dark presence during his connection with Hogwarts magic. "That's incredibly advanced magic," Hermione whispered, eyes wide. "Connecting with Hogwarts' magical foundation. Most adult wizards couldn't do that." "But what about the dark thing you felt?" Ron pressed. "Think it's what Dumbledore's hiding." "Hiding?" Harry repeated. "Well, yeah," Ron said as if it were obvious. "Why else forbid a specific corridor unless you're hiding something important there?" "Or dangerous," Hermione pointed out. "Possibly both." Harry frowned. "Whatever it is, it feels wrong. Like it doesn't belong here." "We should tell a teacher," Hermione suggested. "Blackwood already knows," Harry said. She dismissed it as research materials. "And Snape." He shuddered. "I think he can read minds or something. He looked at me in potions and I felt like he was searching through my head." "Legilimency," Hermione gasped. "That's highly regulated magic. He shouldn't be using that on students." "Legi what?" Ron asked. "Mind reading, essentially," Hermione explained. "Though that's a crude description." Their discussion was interrupted by Percy Weasley, who shooed them out of the library as closing time approached. As October 31st arrived, the Halloween spirit permeated the castle. Massive pumpkins from Hagrid's patch decorated the great hall, live bats fluttered among floating candles, and the ghosts prepared special performances. Harry approached the day with mixed feelings. Halloween marked the anniversary of his parents' murder, a fact none of his classmates seemed aware of as they excitedly discussed the coming feast. During charms that morning, Professor Flitwick announced they were ready to start making objects fly. Harry partnered with Seamus Finnegan, while Ron reluctantly paired with Hermione, whose perfectionism had been grating on him for weeks. Wingardium Leviosa! Ron shouted, waving his arms like a windmill. You're saying it wrong, Hermione snapped. It's Wingardium Leviosa, not Leviosar. You do it then, if you're so clever, Ron snarled. Hermione rolled up her sleeves, performed a perfect swish and flick, and said, Wingardium Leviosa. Their feather rose gracefully into the air. Harry, watching, saw her magic as a precise blue stream lifting the feather. When he attempted the spell, he had to consciously restrain his power. His magical perception showed his own energy as a torrent compared to his classmates' gentle flows. After class, Ron was in a foul mood. It's no wonder no one can stand her, he told Harry as they pushed their way through the crowded corridor. She's a nightmare, honestly. Someone knocked into Harry as they hurried past. It was Hermione, and Harry was startled to see tears streaming down her face. I think she heard you, Harry said. So? Ron looked uncomfortable. She must have noticed she's got no friends. Hermione didn't appear in their next class, nor at lunch. As afternoon classes ended, Harry overheard Parvati Patil telling her friend that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom and wanted to be left alone. Ron looked increasingly guilty as they headed to the Halloween feast, but the spectacular decorations in the Great Hall soon distracted him. Harry, however, couldn't enjoy the festivities knowing Hermione was alone and upset, especially on a day that already held painful associations for him. He was about to suggest they find her when Professor Quirrell sprinted into the hall, turban askew and terror on his face. Troll, he gasped. In the dungeons. Thought you ought to know. He crumpled to the floor in a dead faint. Chaos erupted. Dumbledore shot purple firecrackers from his wand to restore silence. Prefects, he rumbled, lead your houses back to dormitories immediately. As Percy led the Gryffindors out, Harry grabbed Ron's arm. Hermione. She doesn't know about the troll. Ron bit his lip. Oh, all right. But Percy better not see us. They slipped down a deserted side corridor toward the girls' bathroom. Turning a corner, they heard quick footsteps behind them and ducked behind a large stone griffin. To their surprise, Snape crossed the corridor and disappeared from view. What's he doing? Harry whispered. Why isn't he in the dungeons with the other teachers? No idea. They crept after Snape, following at a distance until they realized he was heading for the third-floor corridor. The forbidden corridor, Harry breathed. Why would he? A foul stench reached his nostrils, cutting off his speculation. Then they heard it, a low grunting and the shuffling of enormous feet. At the end of the passage, a monstrous figure moved into view, 12 feet tall, granite-gray skin, a tiny boulder of a head perched on a lumpy body. The troll, Ron moaned. I thought Quirrell said it was in the dungeons. Harry suddenly remembered something else. The girls' bathroom is just around that corner. Come on. They ran toward the troll, which had stopped outside a doorway. As they approached, Harry felt a surge of magical energy, not from the troll, which had very little magical signature, but from inside the bathroom. A moment later, they heard a high, petrified scream. Hermione, they shouted together. Harry burst into the bathroom without thinking. Hermione was shrinking against the opposite wall, looking as if she might faint. The troll advanced on her, knocking sinks off walls as it went. Confuse it. Harry yelled to Ron, grabbing a tap and throwing it against the wall. The troll stopped, blinking stupidly, then turned its ugly snout toward Harry. Oi, pea-brain! Ron shouted from across the room, throwing a metal pipe. The troll didn't seem to notice the pipe, but it heard Ron's yell and turned toward him instead, giving Harry time to run around it. "Come on, run!" Harry yelled to Hermione, trying to pull her toward the door, but she couldn't move, still flat against the wall, mouth open with terror. The shouting and echoes seemed to be driving the troll berserk. It roared and started toward Ron, who was nearest and had no way to escape. Harry felt his magic surging in response to his fear. Without conscious thought, he connected to it, that river of power Blackwood had taught him to access. The green-gold energy flowed through him, responding to his desperate need to protect his friends. "Hey!" he shouted at the troll. The creature turned, and stopped, staring at Harry with its dull eyes. Harry's hands blazed with visible magical energy, bright enough to illuminate the entire bathroom. The troll took a hesitant step back, confused by this new development. Harry advanced, hands extended, raw magic coalescing around him in a crackling aura. "Back away from my friends," he commanded, surprised by the power in his own voice. The troll grunted uncertainly. Then its primitive brain seemed to decide that Harry, despite his glowing hands, was still just a small human. It raised its club and charged. Harry reacted instinctively, the techniques from Blackwood's training kicking in. He reached out with his magic, not toward the troll itself but toward its club. He could see the wooden object's magical signature, could feel its weight and momentum. With a sharp gesture, he pulled. The club wrenched from the troll's grasp and hung in midair. Harry's magic held it suspended for a moment, then he mentally pushed, sending it crashing down onto the troll's own head with a sickening crack. The troll swayed, then fell flat on its face with a thud that made the whole room tremble. Harry stood frozen, hands still glowing with rapidly fading magical energy. Ron stared at him, mouth open. Hermione had slid down the wall to sit on the floor, shaking. "Is it dead?" she managed. "Don't think so," Harry said, his voice unsteady. "Just knocked out." A sudden slamming of doors and running footsteps broke the silence. Harry hadn't realized what a racket they'd been making, but someone downstairs must have heard the troll's roars and crashes. Professor McGonagall burst into the room, followed closely by Snape, with Quirrell bringing up the rear. Quirrell took one look at the troll, whimpered, and sank onto a toilet, clutching his heart. Snape bent over the troll, while McGonagall fixed Harry and Ron with a furious stare. Her lips were white. "What on earth were you thinking?" she demanded. "You're lucky you weren't killed." "Please, Professor," came Hermione's small voice. "They were looking for me. Miss Granger." Hermione struggled to her feet. "I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own. If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now." Harry and Ron tried not to look surprised. Hermione Granger, telling a lie to a teacher. "How did you manage to knock out a fully grown mountain troll?" McGonagall demanded, looking at the club. Before Harry could answer, Snape cut in. "It appears Potter used his unique abilities." His dark eyes fixed on Harry's hands, which still had traces of golden energy dissipating around them. McGonagall followed his gaze, her expression shifting from anger to something more complex. "Mr. Potter, is this true? Did you use raw magical manipulation against the troll?" Harry nodded, seeing no point in denying it. "Its club. I pulled it away and dropped it on its head." Quirrell made another whimpering noise. When Harry glanced at him, he noticed something odd. The professor's magical aura seemed to be fluctuating wildly, the sickly purple energy concentrating not around his wand or hands, but at the back of his head, beneath the turban. "Most first-year students would have died facing a mountain troll," McGonagall said finally. "Professor Dumbledore will be informed of this incident." To their surprise, she awarded points to Gryffindor for Ron and Harry, though technically, Harry had no house to earn points for, and took 5 from Hermione. She then dismissed them to their dormitories, the feast being finished in the houses. As they walked away, Harry noticed Snape watching him with an unreadable expression. The potions master's robes were torn at one leg, revealing what looked like a nasty bite or scratch beneath. When he saw Harry looking, Snape quickly covered his injury. Curiouser still was Quirrell, who'd barely spoken but whose eyes followed Harry with an intensity that made his scar throb painfully. What was Snape doing on the third floor? Harry asked quietly once they were out of earshot. No idea, Ron replied. But bloody hell, Harry, you took down a troll with wandless magic. That was incredible. And terrifying, Hermione added, her voice still shaking. Your hands were glowing like they were on fire. Harry looked down at his hands, now normal. It just happened. I was scared the troll would hurt you guys, and the magic responded. Like Blackwood's been teaching you, Hermione said thoughtfully. Yeah, but I've never managed anything close to that in training, Harry admitted. Fear must have amplified it. As they reached the point where they'd part ways, Ron and Hermione to Gryffindor Tower, Harry to his Eastern Tower, Hermione suddenly hugged him. Thank you, she whispered. Both of you. She hurried off with Ron, leaving Harry to make his solitary way to his room. He found Professor Blackwood waiting outside his door. I heard about the troll, she said without preamble. Show me your hands. Harry held them out. Blackwood took them in her own, examining them carefully, then cast a diagnostic spell that made them briefly glow golden. Remarkable, she murmured. Raw magic manipulation against a Class 4 magical beast, successfully executed under duress, with no apparent magical exhaustion aftermath. Your progress exceeds all projections. I didn't think about it, Harry explained. It just happened. The most powerful magic often does. Blackwood released his hands. But control is still paramount, Mr. Potter. Without it, such outbursts could harm allies as easily as enemies. I did control it, Harry insisted. I targeted just the club, not the whole troll. Indeed. More precision than I would have expected. She studied him with renewed interest. Tomorrow's session will be adjusted accordingly. As she turned to leave, Harry called after her, Professor Blackwood? I saw something strange when the teachers arrived. Professor Quirrell's magical aura, it was concentrated around his turban, not his wand. Is that normal? Blackwood froze momentarily. What exactly did you perceive? Purple energy, sort of, sickly looking. It seemed to pulse from beneath his turban, at the back of his head. I see. Her voice was carefully neutral. That is indeed unusual. Perhaps we should discuss magical aura anomalies in our next session. After she left, Harry collapsed onto his bed, exhausted but mind racing. Snape heading to the forbidden corridor during the troll incident. Quirrell's strange magical aura. Blackwood's too casual dismissal of what Harry had witnessed. Something wasn't adding up. And somehow, Harry suspected it all connected to that dark presence he'd sensed on the third floor. November arrived, bringing bitter cold and the start of Quidditch season. After witnessing Harry's natural flying ability during private lessons, Madame Hooch had suggested he might join a house team next year, despite the first-year prohibition on broomsticks. But which house would he join, being unsorted? It was a question that highlighted Harry's ongoing isolation. Despite his friendship with Ron and Hermione, and increased respect from other students following the troll incident, Harry remained apart, physically in his tower room, and socially as Hogwarts' only unaffiliated student. His sessions with Blackwood intensified. She pushed him to greater feats of raw magical manipulation, levitating multiple objects simultaneously, transfiguring materials without incantations, even creating simple magical effects like light or heat through pure will. Your potential is extraordinary, she told him during one particularly successful session. In a few years, with proper training, you could surpass the capabilities of most adult wizards. But is it safe? Harry asked, thinking of the Sorting Hat's warning. Learning to do magic this way instead of with proper spells. Different, not inferior, Blackwood corrected. Traditional spellcasting offers precision and reliability. Your abilities offer power and adaptability. Ideally, you'll master both approaches. One evening in mid-November, Harry arrived for his session to find Blackwood engaged in a heated whispered argument with Professor Quirrell. They fell silent immediately upon seeing him. "Good evening, Mr. P.P. Potter," Quirrell stammered, backing away nervously. His purple aura pulsed visibly to Harry's enhanced perception, still concentrated strangely beneath his turban. "Professor Quirrell was just leaving," Blackwood said coolly. "He has concerns about our training methods." "SS simply a difference of professional opinion," Quirrell said, edging toward the door. "See, carry on." After he left, Blackwood's expression darkened. "Be wary of Professor Quirrell, Mr. Potter. His interest in your abilities seems excessive." "You've noticed it too?" Harry asked. "He follows me sometimes. And his magical aura is strange." "Yes, you mentioned that." Blackwood waved dismissively. "Many wizards develop magical anomalies after traumatic encounters. His unfortunate experience with vampires in Albania could explain much." But Harry wasn't convinced. "My scar hurts sometimes when he's around." "That can't be normal." Blackwood's attention sharpened. "Your scar? The one from Voldemort's attack?" Harry nodded, surprised by her use of the name most wizards feared to speak. "That is concerning," she admitted. "Cursed scars can retain magical connections to their source." "I'll look into it." That night's session focused on a new technique, magical perception at a distance. "So far you've observed magic directly in your presence," Blackwood explained. "Today we'll work on extending your perception beyond line of sight." The exercise involved Harry focusing on his connection to Hogwarts' magical foundation, the vast network he'd accidentally tapped into weeks earlier. This time, Blackwood guided him carefully, showing him how to extend his awareness through the castle's existing magical channels without becoming overwhelmed. "Think of it as borrowing the castle's eyes," she instructed. "You're not connecting fully as before, just piggybacking on its awareness." Harry found the technique surprisingly intuitive. As he extended his perception, he could sense magical signatures throughout nearby corridors and rooms, students practicing spells in common rooms, house elves using magic in kitchens, even Peeves the poltergeist causing mischief 2 floors below. "I can feel everything," he whispered. "Everyone using magic." "Focus your attention," Blackwood guided. "Direct your perception where you choose, rather than trying to sense everything at once." Harry concentrated, steering his awareness through the castle. He sensed McGonagall transfiguring something in her office, Dumbledore's powerful magical presence in the headmaster's tower, Snape brewing a potion in the dungeons. Then his perception brushed against something familiar, that dark, pulsing presence he'd sensed before. It was moving along the 3rd-floor corridor. "Someone's near the forbidden corridor," he said urgently. "The same dark magic I felt before." Blackwood's expression changed subtly. "Can you identify who?" Harry focused harder, trying to see the magical signature clearly. It's Quirrell. But not just him. There's something else with him, something powerful and wrong." Blackwood abruptly broke Harry's connection, snapping him back to full awareness of the training room. "That's enough for tonight," she said, her voice strangely tight. "You've made excellent progress. But Professor, shouldn't we tell someone? If Quirrell's doing something dangerous, I will handle this information appropriately, Mr. Potter." Her tone brooked no argument. "This may connect to matters already under investigation." As Harry left the session, his mind spun with questions. Quirrell's strange behavior, the dark presence, Blackwood's evasiveness, all seemed connected somehow to the forbidden corridor. He needed answers, and he knew Ron and Hermione would help him find them. "We need to figure out what's being hidden in that corridor," Harry told his friends the next morning over breakfast. He'd pulled them into an empty classroom before heading to the Great Hall to explain what he'd sensed the night before. "And why Quirrell's interested in it," Ron added. And why Snape was heading there during the troll incident. Hermione looked troubled. If both Quirrell and Snape are involved, plus this dark presence you keep sensing, this is serious, Harry. We should tell Dumbledore. Tell him what? Harry countered. That I've been spying through the castle's magic. That I think a teacher has evil magic under his turban. He'd think I'm making things up. What about Blackwood, then? Ron suggested. She already knows about your abilities. Harry shook his head. She's being evasive. Yesterday she cut me off as soon as I mentioned Quirrell at the Forbidden Corridor. Said she'd handle it appropriately. So what do we do? Hermione asked. Research, Harry decided. Find out what might be valuable enough to hide at Hogwarts. And we need to learn more about Quirrell, his background, why he wears that turban, anything unusual. They spent their free periods over the next week in the library. Hermione scoured historical texts for references to valuable magical artifacts, while Ron pestered his brothers for information about Quirrell. Percy says Quirrell was completely different before his sabbatical, Ron reported. Taught Muggle studies, didn't stutter, no turban. Then he took a year off to get practical experience, had some incident in Albania with vampires, and came back, well, like he is now. Albania, Harry repeated thoughtfully. Blackwood mentioned that too. Their research on valuable magical objects initially yielded little. Then, one afternoon, Hagrid inadvertently provided a crucial clue when they visited his hut. What's that, Hagrid? Harry asked, pointing to a newspaper clipping on the table. Gringotts break-in. Latest investigations continue into the break-in at Gringotts on July 31st, widely believed to be the work of dark wizards or witches unknown. Gringotts goblins insist nothing was taken. The vault in question, number 713, had in fact been emptied earlier that same day. That's old news, Hagrid said, quickly covering the clipping. Happened back in summer. But that was the day we went to Gringotts, Harry persisted. You emptied vault 713. Took out that grubby little package. Hagrid looked distinctly uncomfortable. Now, go pokin' into things that don't concern ya, Harry. What that package was is strictly between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Nicholas Flamel? Hermione repeated eagerly. Hagrid looked furious with himself. Back in the library, Hermione's eyes lit up. Nicholas Flamel. I know that name. She rushed to the reference section, returning with an enormous old book. Here it is. Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. The what? Harry and Ron asked together. The Philosopher's Stone. It transforms any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. Hermione read excitedly. Flamel is over 600 years old. So that's what's being guarded, Harry realized. A stone that makes gold and stops death. No wonder someone's trying to steal it, Ron whispered. Anyone would want that. But why hide it at Hogwarts? Hermione wondered. Dumbledore, Harry said. Hagrid always says Hogwarts is the safest place for anything you want to keep secure, except maybe Gringotts. And someone already tried to rob Gringotts. Another piece clicked into place when Harry had his next session with Blackwood. She was teaching him to identify magical protections and wards, how to perceive their structure and potential weaknesses. Standard security enchantments have recognizable patterns, she explained, showing him a series of magical barriers. Ministry-approved protections, Gringotts security measures, even Hogwarts' own defenses follow established magical frameworks. As Harry practiced identifying different types of protections, a thought struck him. Professor, are you teaching me how to break through magical security? Blackwood smiled thinly. I'm teaching you to understand magical protections. Knowledge can be applied many ways. But why would I need to know how to get past enchanted barriers? Perhaps you never will. She watched him carefully. Though understanding how protection spells are constructed and maintained might help explain what you sensed on the third floor. Harry froze. You know what's there. Of course. Blackwood's expression remained neutral. All staff are aware of the special project being housed at Hogwarts this year. The Philosopher's Stone, Harry said, watching her reaction. Her eyebrows rose slightly. You've been busy with your research. Yes, Mr. Potter, Hogwarts is currently protecting Nicholas Flamel's creation. From who? From whom, she corrected automatically. And that is not your concern. Is it Quirrell? Harry pressed. I felt his magical signature near there, along with something else, something dark. Blackwood studied him for a long moment. You are observant, Mr. Potter. Too observant, perhaps. Professor Quirrell's behavior has raised certain questions among the staff. But speculation without evidence is dangerous. But my scar hurts around him, Harry insisted. And that dark presence I sensed, it's like it's connected to him somehow. Your scar. Blackwood seemed to make a decision. Mr. Potter, what do you know about the night your parents died? About your encounter with Lord Voldemort? Harry blinked at the unexpected question. Not much. He killed my parents, tried to kill me, but somehow his curse rebounded. Everyone says that's why I have this scar. Indeed. Blackwood paced the room slowly. Curse scars can form connections between victim and caster. Magical bridges, of a sort. Your ability to perceive magical signatures may be amplifying that connection, allowing you to sense echoes. Echoes of what? Harry asked, dread building in his stomach. Blackwood faced him directly. Tell me, Mr. Potter. What do you know of Voldemort's fate after that night? He disappeared. Some think he died. But you don't believe that, she observed. Harry shook his head slowly. Hagrid doesn't think he had enough human left in him to die. Perceptive of the gamekeeper. Blackwood's voice dropped lower. What if I told you Lord Voldemort survived that night, not as a man, but as something less than even a ghost? A wraith, seeking a way to return to physical form? Harry's blood went cold. The dark presence, you think it's Voldemort? I think you should be extremely careful, Mr. Potter. Especially around those whose magical signatures trigger your scar. Her expression was grave. And I think perhaps it's time to accelerate your training. December arrived, bringing snow and Christmas preparations. Most students would return home for the holidays, but Harry would stay at Hogwarts, as would Ron, whose parents were visiting his brother Charlie in Romania. Following the conversation about Voldemort, Blackwood's training sessions had indeed intensified. She pushed Harry to develop defensive applications of his raw magic, creating shields without spells, sensing magical attacks before they manifested visibly, even disrupting another wizard's casting. Conventional shields block physical effects, she explained during one session. Your ability allows you to intercept the magic itself, before it fully manifests. It was difficult, exhausting work, but Harry progressed rapidly. His magical perception had sharpened to the point where he could identify individual students by their magical signatures alone, could sense spells being cast through walls, could feel the complex layering of enchantments throughout the castle. Meanwhile, he, Ron, and Hermione continued investigating the Philosopher's Stone. Through careful observation and Harry's growing magical awareness, they determined that the stone was protected by a series of obstacles created by different teachers. Fluffy, that's the three-headed dog Hagrid accidentally told us about, must be just the first defense, Hermione reasoned. Each teacher probably contributed something. So Sprout, Flitwick, McGonagall, Quirrell, and Snape, Ron counted on his fingers. Plus whatever Dumbledore added. And Blackwood, Harry added. Though she came later, so maybe not. The mystery deepened when, just before the Christmas holidays, Harry overheard Snape confronting Quirrell in an empty classroom. You don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell, Snape had said in a threatening voice. We'll have another little chat soon, when you've had time to decide where your loyalties lie. When Harry reported this to his friends, Hermione looked troubled. It sounds like Snape is suspicious of Quirrell too. Maybe he knows about the dark presence you sense. Or they're both after the stone for different reasons, Ron suggested. Or they're working together, Harry countered. Remember, Snape was heading to the 3rd floor during the troll incident. The last day before Christmas break, Blackwood gave Harry a curious assignment. The holidays provide an opportunity for independent practice, she said, handing him a small silver device resembling a compass. This will help you track fluctuations in Hogwarts ambient magic. I want you to monitor the castle's magical signatures daily, especially around the 3rd floor corridor. You want me to spy on the stone's protections? Harry asked, surprised. I want you to practice extended magical perception in a controlled environment. But her eyes conveyed a different message. Record any anomalies you detect. As students departed for the holidays, the castle grew quiet. Harry enjoyed having the Gryffindor common room essentially to himself and Ron, spending evenings there rather than his isolated tower room. Christmas morning brought unexpected gifts, a Weasley sweater from Ron's mother, a handmade wooden flute from Hagrid, and most surprisingly, an invisibility cloak that had belonged to his father. Use it well, the anonymous note had said. That night, Harry decided to do exactly that. After Ron fell asleep in Gryffindor Tower, Harry donned the invisibility cloak and set out to explore the castle. The cloak's magic fascinated him. Unlike most magical objects, it didn't emit energy but seemed to bend existing magical flows around it, creating a perfect void in his magical perception. His wanderings led him to the library's restricted section, where he hoped to find more information about Flamel or Voldemort. But a screaming book quickly drove him from the forbidden stacks. Fleeing from Filch, Harry found himself in an unused classroom containing a magnificent mirror with an inscription, Erised stra eru oit ube kafru oit anwosi. When he stood before it, Harry gasped. The mirror showed not his reflection alone, but his parents and a host of relatives, his family, whole and smiling around him. He returned the following night, and the night after that, entranced by the vision. On the 3rd night, Dumbledore found him there. I see you've discovered the mirror of Erised, the headmaster said gently. Do you understand what it shows? It shows my family, Harry replied, unable to tear his eyes from the image. And if Ron Weasley stood before it? Harry considered. His deepest desire, maybe being better than his brothers? Precisely. Dumbledore nodded. The mirror shows nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts. As they discussed the mirror's power and dangers, Harry's magical perception noted something unusual about Dumbledore's magical signature. Unlike the distinct patterns he'd observed in other wizards, Dumbledore's magic seemed to exist on multiple layers simultaneously, a complexity beyond anything Harry had encountered. Sir, Harry ventured, I've been seeing magical auras around people when they cast spells. Professor Blackwood says it's rare. Indeed it is, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. A gift that can offer great insight, if properly understood. Your magic looks different from everyone else's, Harry continued. More, complex. Multi-layered. Dumbledore smiled. Magic, like its practitioners, grows more intricate with experience and study. What you perceive reflects not just power, but the accumulation of knowledge and techniques. Harry hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling him. Professor, is it possible to sense Voldemort's magic? Even if he's not truly alive? The twinkle faded from Dumbledore's eyes. You've been discussing such matters with Professor Blackwood, I take it? Harry nodded. Magic leaves traces, Harry. Especially powerful, distinctive magic such as Voldemort's. Those sensitive enough might indeed perceive such echoes. Dumbledore studied him carefully. Have you sensed something of this nature? Harry described the dark presence he'd detected near the 3rd floor corridor, and its apparent connection to Quirrell. Dumbledore listened without interruption, his expression grave. When Harry finished, the headmaster remained silent for a long moment. "I appreciate your candor, Harry. Rest assured these concerns are not unfounded, nor are they being ignored." He rose from where he'd been sitting. "Now, I suggest you put that admirable cloak to good use and return to bed." As Harry prepared to leave, another question occurred to him. "Sir. One more thing. Do you know why the Sorting Hat refused to sort me?" Dumbledore's expression became inscrutable. "The hat has its own wisdom. But perhaps it recognized that extraordinary abilities require extraordinary circumstances to develop properly. So I really am dangerous. All great power carries risk, Harry. The question is not whether you possess dangerous potential, but how you choose to direct it." Dumbledore smiled kindly. "Now, off to bed." When classes resumed in January, Harry shared Dumbledore's cryptic answers with Ron and Hermione. "He basically confirmed Quirrell's up to something," Ron said excitedly. "And that Voldemort might be involved somehow." "But he didn't actually say that," Hermione pointed out. "Just that Harry's concerns weren't unfounded." Harry's training with Blackwood continued to advance. By February, he could perform basic wandless magic consistently, summoning objects, creating light, even casting simple shields without incantations. "Your progress exceeds all expectations," Blackwood told him during one particularly successful session. "Most wizards require years to develop even rudimentary wandless abilities." "It still feels uncontrolled sometimes," Harry admitted. "Like I'm directing a fire hose rather than a wand." "Precision will come with practice," she assured him. "Raw power is the rarer component." Their sessions increasingly focused on the magical protections around the Philosopher's Stone. Blackwood had Harry practice extending his perception to monitor the third-floor corridor, tracking magical signatures that approached the forbidden door. "Quirrell visits almost nightly now," Harry reported. "And that dark presence is always with him." "Yes," Blackwood nodded. "The situation appears to be accelerating. Shouldn't Dumbledore stop him?" "If we know Quirrell's trying to steal the stone, evidence, Mr. Potter. We have suspicions, but no proof. And sometimes, allowing a plot to develop reveals more than stopping it prematurely." Harry didn't like the implications. "You're using the stone as bait?" "Not I," Blackwood corrected. "But there are larger considerations at play." One evening in late February, Blackwood introduced a new element to their training, a peculiar artifact resembling a crystalline basin. "This is a specialized pensieve," she explained. "It allows for the temporary transfer of magical perceptions between individuals." "You want to see what I see?" Harry asked. "Precisely. Your magical perception has developed unique characteristics. Understanding exactly how you perceive magical signatures could advance our knowledge of primordial casting." The process was strange but painless. Harry focused on his magical awareness while Blackwood extracted a silvery substance, not quite liquid, not quite gas, from his temple with her wand. She placed it in the pensieve, then immersed her face in the swirling contents. When she emerged minutes later, her expression showed genuine astonishment. "Extraordinary," she breathed. "You don't merely see magic, Mr. Potter, you perceive its fundamental structure, its very essence. Even among those with magical sight, such clarity is unprecedented." "Is that good or bad?" Harry asked uncertainly. "It's significant." She seemed to choose her words carefully. "It suggests your connection to raw magical energy is more fundamental than we realized. Almost as if." "As if what?" "As if your magical core developed differently from normal wizards. More directly connected to primordial magic itself." She studied him with renewed intensity. "Mr. Potter, would you permit me to examine your magical core directly?" The request made Harry uneasy. "Is that safe?" "With proper precautions, yes. It would involve a specialized diagnostic spell, harmless but revealing." Something in her too eager expression triggered Harry's caution. I'd rather not today. I'm pretty tired from the pensive thing. Blackwood controlled her disappointment quickly. Of course. Another time, perhaps. The next day, Harry shared his concerns with Ron and Hermione. She seemed almost hungry when she asked to examine my magical core, he explained. Like she'd discovered something valuable. I've been reading about magical cores, Hermione said worriedly. They're the source of a wizard's power, deeply personal and vulnerable. Allowing someone direct access is considered intimate and potentially dangerous. Do you trust her? Ron asked bluntly. Harry hesitated. I did. But lately. I don't know. She's been more interested in my abilities than in helping me control them safely. What about Dumbledore? Hermione suggested. Could you ask him about this? Before Harry could decide, events took an unexpected turn. After dinner that evening, McGonagall approached him with an urgent message. Potter, the headmaster wishes to see you immediately. The password is chocolate frog. Harry found Dumbledore waiting in his office, looking graver than usual. The Sorting Hat sat on the desk between them. Harry, please sit down, Dumbledore said quietly. We have a serious matter to discuss. Harry's stomach clenched. Is this about Professor Blackwood? Or Quirrell? In a manner of speaking. Dumbledore's blue eyes held none of their usual twinkle. It concerns the Sorting Hat's refusal to place you in a house, and information that has recently come to light. The Hat stirred on the desk. I told you from the beginning, Dumbledore. The boy carries a shadow within him. What shadow? Harry asked, anxiety rising. Is it because of my magical abilities? The raw magic perception? That ability is merely a symptom, not the cause, Dumbledore said gently. Harry, what do you know about the night Voldemort gave you that scar? Not much, Harry admitted. He killed my parents, tried to kill me, but the curse rebounded. Yes. But what has never been fully explained is why the killing curse, a spell that no one had ever survived, failed to take your life. Dumbledore leaned forward. The truth, which I have confirmed only recently, is that when Voldemort's curse rebounded, it created a connection between you. Like Blackwood said, a magical bridge through my scar. More profound than that. Dumbledore looked pained. When the killing curse failed, a fragment of Voldemort's own magic, his very essence, was torn from him and latched onto the only living thing in that room. You, Harry. Harry felt sick. I have part of Voldemort, inside me. A magical fragment, yes. What wizarding scholars call a soul shard, though that term is imprecise. The Sorting Hat spoke again. That is what I sensed, Potter. Your own magic is extraordinary, but entangled with it is a foreign presence, dark, corrupting, dangerous. I could not, in good conscience, place you where that shadow might influence others. That's why my scar hurts around Quirrell, Harry realized. And why I can sense that dark presence. It's responding to whatever's left of Voldemort. We believe so, yes. Dumbledore nodded gravely. Professor Quirrell encountered something during his travels in Albania, something that we now suspect was Voldemort's wraith-like form. He appears to be hosting what remains of Voldemort, allowing him access to a physical body. Is that why he wears the turban? To hide him? We believe so. Harry felt overwhelmed, revolted. So I have a piece of the person who murdered my parents living inside me. Can you remove it? Dumbledore's hesitation was answer enough. Such magic is complex and dangerous, Harry. Research continues, but at present. You can't. Harry's voice was hollow. This connection may explain your unusual magical abilities, Dumbledore continued gently. Your perception of magical auras, your facility with wandless casting, these might be influenced by the foreign magic within you. Harry stared at his hands. So my power isn't even really mine. It's his. No, Dumbledore said firmly. Your magical core is uniquely yours, Harry. What the connection has done is alter how your magic develops and manifests, creating pathways unusual for most wizards. Is that why Professor Blackwood is so interested in me? Does she know about this connection? Professor Blackwood was brought to Hogwarts specifically because of her expertise with unusual magical manifestations, Dumbledore confirmed. She was informed that your condition involved a curse connection to Voldemort, though not all details were shared. A terrible suspicion formed in Harry's mind. She wanted to examine my magical core directly. Was she looking for Voldemort's fragment? That would be highly improper without my authorization. Dumbledore frowned. When did she make this request? Yesterday. After using a pensieve to see my magical perception. Dumbledore stood abruptly, moving to the fireplace. He threw in a handful of powder and called, Minerva, please come to my office immediately. Bring Severus. Turning back to Harry, he said, I did not authorize such an examination. Professor Blackwood's role was to help you develop control, not investigate the connection itself. Does this mean I really am dangerous? Harry asked, the question that had haunted him since September. Because of this fragment? The Sorting Hat believes so, Dumbledore acknowledged. But I have always maintained that our choices define us more than our circumstances. How you respond to this knowledge matters more than the connection itself. McGonagall and Snape arrived moments later. Dumbledore quickly explained the situation. I have not authorized any examination of Potter's magical core, he concluded. Yet Professor Blackwood has apparently sought to do exactly that. She has been asking unusual questions about Potter's abilities, Snape confirmed reluctantly. And about the third-floor corridor's protections. Find her, Dumbledore ordered. Bring her here immediately. But when McGonagall and Snape returned 30 minutes later, their expressions were grim. She's gone, Albus, McGonagall reported. Her quarters are empty, her personal effects removed. And Quirrell? Dumbledore asked sharply. Also missing, Snape said. Along with certain items from his office. Dumbledore turned to Harry. It seems the situation has accelerated beyond our preparations. Harry, I need you to return to your tower room and remain there under guard. Professors McGonagall and Snape will check the third-floor corridor. But sir, Harry protested, if Quirrell and Blackwood are going after the stone, this is not your burden to bear, Harry, Dumbledore said firmly. We will handle this matter. As Harry left the office, escorted by a hastily summoned Professor Flitwick, his mind raced. Blackwood and Quirrell, both missing. The Philosopher's Stone in danger. And worst of all, the revelation that he carried a fragment of Voldemort within him, the true reason the Sorting Hat had declared him too dangerous. But one thought rose above the others, Blackwood hadn't been helping him control his abilities for his own safety. She'd been helping him develop them for some other purpose, a purpose connected to the Philosopher's Stone and, somehow, to Voldemort himself. Chapter 3, Beyond Houses. Harry stared at the ceiling of his tower room, mind racing despite the late hour. A piece of Voldemort lived inside him. The most evil wizard in recent history, the murderer of his parents, had left a fragment of himself embedded in Harry's very being. That's why the Hat refused to sort him. Not just because of his unusual magical abilities, but because he was literally carrying darkness inside him. Merlin's beard, Harry whispered to the empty room. A sharp rap on his door broke the silence. Harry grabbed his wand from the bedside table. Who is it? Us, Ron's voice whispered urgently. Let us in before Filch catches us. Harry opened the door to find Ron and Hermione huddled under his invisibility cloak. How did you, Fred and George, know every secret passage in this castle? Ron explained, throwing off the cloak. Getting to the Eastern Tower without being seen isn't that hard if you know which portraits to avoid. We heard teachers rushing around, Hermione said, her face pinched with worry. Professor McGonagall sent all Gryffindors to the dormitory immediately after you left with Professor Flitwick. Something's happening. Harry hesitated only briefly before telling them everything: Dumbledore's revelation about the soul fragment, Blackwood and Quirrell's disappearance, the suspected attempt on the Philosopher's Stone. When he finished, his friends sat in stunned silence. "Blimey," Ron finally whispered. "You've got you-know-who in your scar." "That explains so much," Hermione said softly. "The hat's refusal, your ability to see magic, the connection you feel to the third floor." She looked up sharply. "Harry, if Quirrell is hosting Voldemort, and Blackwood has been secretly working with him, they're going after the stone tonight," Harry finished. "Dumbledore's handling it." "Is he, though?" Ron asked. "Fred and George said they saw him flying off on a broomstick just after dinner. Something about an urgent owl from the Ministry." Harry's stomach dropped. "He's not in the castle. If Dumbledore's gone." Hermione trailed off, implications hanging heavy in the air. Harry jumped to his feet. "We have to stop them." "Are you mental?" Ron gaped. "We're talking about you-know-who and 2 adult wizards." "They've been manipulating me for months," Harry said, anger building. "Blackwood wasn't teaching me control, she was developing my abilities for this moment. She wanted me to be able to sense the stone's protections, maybe even help bypass them. All the more reason to stay away." Hermione insisted. Harry shook his head. "You don't understand. My connection to Voldemort, I can feel when he's near. Right now, he's moving toward the stone. If he gets it, if he comes back to full power." "We should tell the other teachers," Hermione suggested. "McGonagall and Snape are checking the corridor," Harry reminded them. "But what if they're too late? What if Blackwood and Quirrell already got past Fluffy?" "What exactly are you suggesting?" Hermione asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. Harry grabbed his invisibility cloak. "We go there ourselves. Now." "This is mental," Ron repeated, but he was already putting on his shoes. The castle corridors were eerily quiet as they crept toward the 3rd floor under the invisibility cloak. Twice they had to pause as teachers hurried past, first Flitwick and Sprout deep in worried conversation, then McGonagall looking grim. "At least the teachers are patrolling," Hermione whispered. "But not Snape," Harry noted. "Wasn't he supposed to be checking the corridor with McGonagall?" As they approached the forbidden door, Harry extended his magical perception. The corridor ahead throbbed with overlapping magical signatures, the protections on the door itself, the magical presence of the 3-headed dog beyond, and fainter traces of recent magical activity. "Someone's been here," he whispered. "Multiple someones. I can sense magical residue from at least 3 different wizards." "Can you tell who?" Ron asked. Harry concentrated. "Definitely Quirrell, that sickly purple energy. And Blackwood's silver-blue signature. But there's someone else too." "Snape." His eyes widened. "Snape's already gone through. To stop them or help them?" Hermione wondered. Harry approached the door, examining it with both regular and magical sight. "The lock's been opened recently. Multiple times." "Do you hear that?" Ron asked suddenly. A faint melody drifted from beyond the door, a harp playing by itself. Music to keep Fluffy asleep, Harry realized. Hagrid accidentally told us he falls asleep to music. Harry tested the door, unlocked. They slipped inside to find the enormous 3-headed dog snoring peacefully, an enchanted harp playing in the corner. Near one massive paw, a trapdoor stood open. "They've already gone through," Hermione whispered. Harry noticed the harp's melody beginning to falter. "Quick, down the trapdoor before that stops playing." One after another, they dropped into darkness. Instead of hard ground, they landed on something soft and plant-like. "Lucky this plant thing was here," Ron said, trying to get comfortable. "Lucky?" Hermione's voice rose in panic. Look at you. Tendrils of the plant were already wrapping around Ron's legs. Harry felt them tightening around his own body too. Devil's snare. Stop moving. Hermione commanded. It's Devil's snare, it'll only kill you faster if you struggle. Kill us faster. Ron yelped, fighting harder. Oh, now I can relax. Harry forced himself to go still, remembering Professor Sprout's lessons. Devil's snare hates light and warmth. Hermione pointed her wand upward. Lumos solum. A jet of blinding sunlight burst from her wand. The plant shrank away, dropping them onto solid ground below. Sprout's contribution to the protection, Harry said, brushing himself off. Let's keep moving. They followed the only available passage until they reached a chamber filled with what looked like glittering birds. Those aren't birds, Harry said, perceiving their magical nature. They're keys. Enchanted flying keys. He pointed to a door across the room. And I'm guessing one of them opens that. Look. Ron pointed to 3 broomsticks hovering in the corner. We're supposed to fly and catch the right key. Flitwick's challenge, Harry nodded. But someone's already done this too. He examined the door's magical signature. The lock's been opened at least twice already. Nevertheless, they had to complete the task. Harry's perception helped identify the key they needed, an old-fashioned silver one with bent wings, as if it had already been grabbed and roughly handled twice before. With his seeker-like reflexes from flying lessons, Harry caught it within minutes. The door unlocked, revealing their next challenge, an enormous chessboard. McGonagall's, Ron breathed, eyes lighting up. We've got to play our way across. This challenge took longer. Despite Ron's strategic brilliance, the game was brutal. The white chess pieces showed no mercy, smashing black pieces that lost. When they finally achieved checkmate, Ron himself had sacrificed his knight position, taking a heavy blow that left him dazed on the sidelines. Go on without me, he insisted, wincing. I'll be fine. Stop them. Harry and Hermione reluctantly continued to the next chamber, where they found their path blocked by a knocked-out troll, larger than the one Harry had faced at Halloween. Quirrell's contribution, Harry guessed. Already dealt with by someone ahead of us. The next room contained a table with 7 differently shaped bottles standing in a line. The moment they entered, purple flames sprang up behind them and black flames ahead. Snape's, Hermione said, examining a roll of parchment on the table. A logic puzzle. It took Hermione only minutes to solve it. The smallest bottle will get one of us through the black flames toward the stone, she concluded. And this rounded one will take someone back through the purple flames. Harry examined the smallest bottle. There's barely one swallow left. Someone's already gone through, but they made sure no one could follow. You should go forward, Hermione said decisively. I'll go back, get Ron, and try to contact Dumbledore somehow. Harry nodded, the weight of what lay ahead settling on him. If Quirrell and Blackwood are working together, with Voldemort, be careful. You too, Hermione said, suddenly throwing her arms around him. You're a great wizard, Harry. Not as good as you, he replied honestly. Books and cleverness, she shook her head. There are more important things, friendship, bravery, and Harry. Her expression grew serious. Having a piece of Voldemort inside you doesn't define you. Your choices do. Her words steadied him as they each drank from their respective bottles. Hermione shuddered as the potion took effect and stepped back through the purple flames. Harry, feeling ice flood his veins, moved forward through the black flames. The final chamber was larger than the others, descending in stone steps to a central platform where the mirror of Erised stood. But Harry barely registered the familiar mirror, his attention fixed on the 3 figures before it. Professor Quirrell stood directly in front of the mirror, his turban slightly askew. Professor Blackwood circled it slowly, wand tracing complex patterns in the air. And Snape lay bound and apparently unconscious to one side. It must be more than a simple concealment charm, Blackwood was saying, frustration evident. Dumbledore would have incorporated the mirror's unique properties into the protection. I see the S-stone, Quirrell said, stutter noticeably reduced. I'm holding it. But how do I get it? Use the boy, a high, cold voice said, a voice that seemed to come from Quirrell himself. Harry's scar exploded with pain. All three turned to see him standing at the chamber entrance. Potter, Blackwood smiled, not looking surprised at all. Right on schedule. You were expecting me? Harry asked, wand raised defensively. Counting on it, actually, she replied smoothly. After our little session with the pensieve, I suspected you'd sense our movements tonight. Your connection to the castle's magic is quite remarkable. And to other things, the cold voice added. Quirrell turned fully toward Harry, reaching for his turban. My master wishes to speak with you directly, Potter. As Quirrell unwound the purple fabric, Harry's scar burned so intensely he nearly dropped his wand. Where there should have been the back of Quirrell's head, there was another face, chalk-white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. Harry Potter, it whispered. See what I have become. Shadow and vapor, forced to share another's body. But once I have the elixir of life, I can create a body of my own. Despite the excruciating pain in his forehead, Harry kept his wand steady. Voldemort. Yes, the face smiled terribly. You see what power does, Potter. Divides the worthy from the unworthy, the strong from the weak. You're the weak one, Harry replied, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. Too afraid to die. Parasitizing others to survive. Voldemort's eyes narrowed. Brave words from one who carries my essence within him. His lipless mouth curved into a hideous smile. Oh yes, I know about our connection. I can feel it, just as you can. Harry's blood ran cold. What do you mean? The fragment of my soul that lodged in you that night, Voldemort said. A most unexpected Horcrux. Why do you think your magic manifests so unusually, Potter? You tap into powers no ordinary wizard could access, my powers. Lies, Harry said, but uncertainty crept in. Hadn't Dumbledore suggested something similar? Lyra, Voldemort addressed Blackwood, explain to our young friend what you've been nurturing all these months. Blackwood stepped away from the mirror, regarding Harry with clinical interest. Your ability to perceive and manipulate raw magic isn't entirely natural, Potter. It's amplified by the soul fragment within you, a direct connection to Lord Voldemort's own magical core. You've been helping me develop these abilities because of Voldemort? Harry asked, betrayal cutting deep. I've been helping you tap into power most wizards never access, she corrected. The origin was irrelevant. The potential is what matters. For what? So I could help you steal the stone. That was merely the immediate application, Blackwood said dismissively. Lord Voldemort saw your true potential when you survived his killing curse. A vessel carrying his essence, capable of channeling primordial magic itself. Such a weapon deserves proper development. I'm not a weapon, Harry said through gritted teeth. And I'm not helping you get the stone. But you will, Voldemort said softly. Quirrell cannot retrieve it from the mirror. Snape failed. Blackwood's attempts have proven futile. The old fool has set a trap, only one who wants to find the stone, but not use it, can retrieve it. Harry's eyes flickered to the unconscious form of Snape. You're saying Snape tried to stop you? The traitor arrived shortly before you, Blackwood said contemptuously. Apparently he suspected our plan. Unfortunately for him, facing two skilled wizards alone proved overwhelming. And now you'll look in the mirror, Potter, Voldemort commanded. Tell us what you see. Or what? Harry challenged, mind racing for a way out. Or I will reveal to you the true extent of the dark magic you carry, Voldemort threatened. The fragment within you can be awakened, Potter. Directed. You've experienced only subtle influences thus far, enhanced magical perception, wandless abilities. Imagine that power turned inward, consuming you from within. Harry's scar throbbed with each word, as if the fragment responded to its master's voice. He remembered Blackwood's lessons on magical cores, how closely intertwined magic was with a wizard's very being. Fine, Harry relented. I'll look. As he approached the mirror, Blackwood and Quirrell moved to flank him. Harry steeled himself, recalling what Dumbledore had said about the mirror of Erised showing one's deepest desire. His desire now was clear: find the stone before Voldemort could use it. In the mirror, Harry saw himself as he was, pale, determined, surrounded by enemies. Then his reflection smiled, reached into its pocket, and pulled out a blood-red stone. It winked and returned the stone to its pocket, and as it did, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. Incredibly, he had gotten the stone. Well? Blackwood demanded. What do you see? Harry thought quickly. I see myself with my parents, he lied. They're proud of me. He lies, Voldemort hissed. The boy has the stone. Take it from him. Everything happened at once. Quirrell lunged forward, hands outstretched. Blackwood raised her wand. And Harry, acting on instinct honed by months of Blackwood's own training, reached for the raw magic that flowed through the chamber. He could see it all: the ancient enchantments in the stone walls, the complex magic of the mirror, the twisted purple-black energy surrounding Quirrell, the precise silver blue of Blackwood's magic preparing to strike. Even the faint green spark of magic still present in the unconscious Snape. Blackwood's spell shot toward him, a binding hex, from its magical signature. Harry didn't try to dodge or block with a counterspell. Instead, he did what she had inadvertently taught him: he reached out with his raw magic and disrupted the spell mid-flight. The hex shattered into harmless magical sparks. Blackwood's eyes widened. Impressive, she admitted. You've been practicing. You're a good teacher, Harry replied, backing toward the exit. Too bad you're on the wrong side. There is no wrong side, she said, circling to cut off his retreat. Only power and those too weak to seek it. Seize him. Voldemort commanded. Quirrell moved with inhuman speed, grabbing Harry's wrist before he could escape. Immediately, an extraordinary thing happened. Where Quirrell's skin contacted Harry's, angry red blisters formed on the professor's hand. He howled in pain, releasing Harry at once. My hand. Quirrell stared in horror at his blistering flesh. Master, I cannot touch him. Then kill him, fool. Voldemort screeched. As Quirrell raised his wand, Harry acted on pure instinct. He lunged forward and pressed his bare hands against Quirrell's face. The effect was instantaneous. Quirrell screamed in agony as his skin burned and blistered beneath Harry's touch. Harry's scar felt like it would split his head open, but he held on, understanding instinctively that whatever protection he had against Voldemort was their weakness. Master, help me. Quirrell shrieked as his face literally crumbled beneath Harry's hands. Blackwood moved to intervene, but something unexpected happened. The soul fragment within Harry seemed to respond to its proximity to its main portion. Harry could feel it stirring, reaching toward Voldemort like a magnet drawn to its opposite pole. This connection created a magical feedback loop of extraordinary power. Harry's magical perception showed it as a blinding gold-green torrent flowing between himself and Quirrell, growing brighter and more chaotic by the second. Blackwood recognized the danger. No. The fragments are resonating. The magical backlash exploded outward before she could finish. Harry felt himself thrown backward, his consciousness fading even as he registered Quirrell's body disintegrating into ash. The last thing he saw was a wraith-like form tearing itself free from the disintegrating body, and Blackwood diving for cover as the magical shockwave ripped through the chamber. Then darkness took him. Harry opened his eyes to white ceiling and soft bedding. The hospital wing. Dumbledore sat beside his bed, watching him with those penetrating blue eyes. Good afternoon, Harry, said the headmaster. Harry's memories flooded back. Sir. The stone. Quirrell had Voldemort on the back of his head. And Blackwood, calm yourself, dear boy. You are a little behind the times, Dumbledore smiled. Quirrell does not have the stone. Then who does? Nicholas Flamel and I have had a little chat and agreed it's best all around if the stone is destroyed. Destroyed? Harry echoed. But Flamel will die, won't he? He has enough elixir to set his affairs in order. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible, but to Nicholas, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. Harry absorbed this, then asked, what happened in the chamber? With Quirrell and Voldemort? Ah. Dumbledore grew serious. When Professor Quirrell, possessed by Voldemort, attempted to take the stone from you by force, he discovered he could not touch you. Your mother's sacrifice left a mark on you, not a visible mark, but a protection in your very skin. Voldemort, who traffics in hatred and cruelty, cannot touch something so pure without suffering. And the explosion? Dumbledore hesitated. That, Harry, relates to the fragment within you. When two portions of the same magical essence came into such direct conflict, it created what magical theorists call a harmonic dissonance, essentially, a violent rejection. Like matter and antimatter, Harry murmured, remembering a science program Dudley had watched. An apt comparison, Dumbledore nodded. This reaction destroyed Quirrell's body and forced Voldemort's wraith form to flee. Most illuminating, and potentially useful information for the future. And Blackwood? Snape. Professor Snape is recovering well, Dumbledore replied. He regained consciousness shortly after the explosion and managed to secure the chamber until help arrived. As for Professor Blackwood, she escaped in the chaos. Harry frowned. She'll try to help Voldemort return, won't she? I fear that is likely, yes. Lyra Blackwood concealed her true allegiances well. She was never formally identified as a Death Eater during Voldemort's first rise, but it seems her loyalty to him remained intact. Her expertise in rare magical manifestations made her the perfect tutor for you, and the perfect agent to help Voldemort understand the connection between you. She said she was developing me as a weapon, Harry said quietly. And yet, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled again, she inadvertently gave you the very skills you needed to thwart them. Life is rich with such ironies. Harry sank back against his pillows. Sir, in the chamber, Voldemort said the fragment in me is something called a Horcrux. Dumbledore's face grew very still. That is a term I had hoped you would not encounter for many years, if ever. What does it mean? After a long pause, Dumbledore answered carefully. It refers to an exceptionally dark magical practice involving the splintering of one's soul through terrible acts, and the embedding of those fragments in objects, or in unprecedented cases, living beings, to anchor one's existence to the mortal world. So I'm keeping Voldemort alive? Harry asked, horrified. Not precisely, Dumbledore said gently. The fragment within you is but one of several such anchors Voldemort created. And its presence, while concerning, also provides certain insights that may prove crucial in eventually defeating him permanently. Harry tried to process this. Does this mean I'll always be connected to him? Always have his powers? The connection appears permanent, yes. But the abilities it has awakened in you are not merely borrowed or parasitic. Your magical core has developed in response to the fragment's presence, but the resulting capabilities are uniquely yours. That's why the Sorting Hat wouldn't place me, Harry realized. It sensed Voldemort in me and thought I'd be corrupted. The Hat perceived risk, yes. But perhaps also potential that no single house could properly nurture. Dumbledore leaned forward. Which brings me to an offer. Now that we better understand your situation, the Hat might be persuaded to reconsider its decision. If you wish, we could attempt a sorting before the next school year begins. Harry considered this carefully. Throughout the year, he had yearned to belong to a house, to have that built-in community. But his unique position had also brought unexpected benefits, friendships across house boundaries, a perspective unbiased by house loyalties, the freedom to develop his abilities without constricting expectations. "I think," Harry said slowly, "I think I'd rather stay unhoused, sir." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "May I ask why?" "Being houseless forced me to build connections everywhere. Ron and Hermione are Gryffindors, but I've also made friends with Ravenclaws like Padma and Hufflepuffs like Justin. Even some decent Slytherins when they're not around Malfoy." Harry sat straighter. "I'm not defined by house traits, and maybe that's good. Maybe that's what I need to be, with everything else that makes me different." Dumbledore studied him thoughtfully. "A wise perspective, Harry. Though it means you shall remain in your tower room, somewhat apart from your peers." "Actually, I had an idea about that." Harry had been considering this for months. "What if I started a study group? For students from all houses. We could meet in the library or find an unused classroom. Share different perspectives, help each other with homework, maybe even practice defensive magic together. An inter-house study association." Dumbledore stroked his beard, eyes twinkling. "What a marvelous concept. I believe Professor Flitwick would be delighted to serve as faculty advisor for such an endeavor." Harry smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He might never be free of Voldemort's fragment, might always carry that darkness within him. But perhaps being too dangerous for any house wasn't a curse after all, perhaps it was the very thing that would allow him to bridge divisions others couldn't cross. The end-of-year feast found Harry sitting at the Gryffindor table with Ron and Hermione. Though he had no house points to contribute, he cheered loudly when Dumbledore awarded last-minute points to his friends for their roles in protecting the stone, enough to edge out Slytherin for the House Cup. As students boarded the Hogwarts Express the next day, Harry found himself surrounded not just by Ron and Hermione, but by a mixed group of first-years from all houses, Neville, Dean, and Seamus from Gryffindor, Padma, Lisa, and Terry from Ravenclaw, Justin, Ernie, and Susan from Hufflepuff, and even Daphne and Blaise from Slytherin. "We've been talking," Susan Bones said, "and we all want to join your study group next year. If you're still planning it." "Definitely," Harry grinned. "First meeting second week of term. My aunt works in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement," Susan continued. "She said what you did with the stone was incredibly brave. She also said," she lowered her voice, "that the ministry's keeping quiet about you-know-who's involvement. They don't want to cause panic." "Typical," Ron scoffed. "Pretend everything's fine until it blows up in their faces." "All the more reason for our group," Hermione said decisively. "We need to be prepared, whatever the ministry claims." As the train rolled through the countryside, their compartment door slid open to reveal Draco Malfoy, flanked as always by Crabbe and Goyle. Well, well," he drawled, "Potter's little fan club crosses all houses now. How touching." "What do you want, Malfoy?" Harry asked tiredly. To his surprise, Malfoy's sneer faltered slightly. "Is it true? About the stone and Quirrell?" "Yes," Harry said simply. "And?" Malfoy glanced at his cronies, then back to Harry, lowering his voice. "The Dark Lord?" The compartment went silent. Harry met Malfoy's eyes directly. He was there. "He's not gone, Malfoy. Just weakened. And he'll try to come back again." Something complicated passed across Malfoy's pointed face, fear, calculation, and perhaps a hint of uncertainty. "Choose your friends carefully, Potter," he said finally. "When the time comes, you'll want to be on the right side." After they left, Ron snorted. "As if we don't know which side that Git's family was on last time." But Harry had caught something in Malfoy's tone, not a threat, but almost a warning. As if the Slytherin boy wasn't entirely convinced which side was right anymore. The train arrived at King's Cross all too soon. As they disembarked, Harry spotted Uncle Vernon waiting with an expression of profound distaste. "Ready for summer, mate?" Ron asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Harry shrugged. "They don't know we're not allowed to use magic outside school. I'm going to have some fun with Dudley." Hermione looked scandalized. "Harry, you can't." "Just joking," Harry grinned, though privately he thought a little fear might improve the Dursleys' treatment of him. As his friends departed with their families, Harry approached Uncle Vernon with a lightness in his step that hadn't been there when he'd left for Hogwarts. He may have started the year houseless and alone, but he'd ended it with friends from every corner of Hogwarts, a deeper understanding of his unique abilities, and a path forward that was entirely his own. He might be carrying a piece of Voldemort within him. He might be too dangerous for any single house. But Harry had discovered something important during his first year at Hogwarts: being different didn't have to mean being isolated. Sometimes it meant creating something new, something that crossed boundaries others took for granted. As Uncle Vernon grumbled about freaks on the drive home, Harry smiled to himself. Let Voldemort plot his return. Let Blackwood scheme in the shadows. Let the Ministry deny the looming threat. Harry Potter, the boy too dangerous for any house, would be ready. And he wouldn't be facing them alone. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.